Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had to move away part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Bakugo was content with where he was right now. He finally has gotten into UA. Their second year just started. He has friends, which are shitty hair, dunce face, tape arms, and raccoon eyes as he would call them. He is still friendly with the whole class but aren't as close as he is with them four. As he was doing some homework, he got a knock on his door. Opening it, there was Kirishima with his signature grin. "Hey Baku bro," Kirishima greeted. Bakugo groaned. "What shitty hair?" Kirishima pouted at the nickname. "We are all going to play games in the commons room. Come join us," Kirishima suggested. "Fine," Bakugo grumbled, knowing that if he didn't they would beg him until he would. Kirishima smiled widely and nodded. "I'll see you done there." Bakugo got ready a little, getting on some comfortable clothes and grabbing his phone, then walking downstairs. "Hey extras," he muttered, sitting down on the couch with Mina. Everyone from Class 2A was there, either sitting on the floor, couch, or on a person's lap. Finally Bakugo. "Everyone. Now we can play." Mina calls out. Everyone stopped their conversations and listened in. "So first let's play spin the bottle," Siro suggests. "Yeah, that sounds fun," Denki exclaims, everyone agreeing except Bakugo. "Baku bro, you gonna play?" Kirishima asks. Bakugo shook his head. "No, I'm not kissing any of you extras," he huffed. "Ah come on," Bakugo shook his head again. Everyone sighed in defeat, knowing once Bakugo settled on something he was stubborn. A couple rounds went. Siro kissing Mina, Denki kissing Ida, Kirishima kissing Ojiro, and so on. "It's getting boring, let's play truth or dare," Kirishima smiled, settling down next to Bakugo. "Yeah, that sounds fun." Everyone agreed. "Tisich, fine, I'll play I guess," Bakugo agreed. "Yay." "So truth or dare?" Mina asks, smirking. "Truth, Karo? Does your tongue benefit during section?" Mina asks, Sue going red. "Ah, yes it does." Sue answered, making some chuckle. It went on for a while until Bakugo's name was called. "Baku babe, truth or dare?" Mina giggles. "Don't call me that, raccoon eyes." "And dare?" Bakugo scowled. Okay. I dare you to kiss the most attractive person here." Mina grinned. "Truth?" Bakugo says. "What? No. You can't go back." Mina shook her head. "Yes if can," Bakugo yelled. Mina just sighed. "Fine. Then why won't you do the dare?" Bakugo looked away and teased. "Because I'm in a relationship." Everyone looked at him like he was crazy. "What you extras looking at, huh? You're dating someone?" Kirishima exclaimed. He looked hurt, sad, betrayed. "Yeah, what's it to you?" Bakugo scoffed. "Who?" Mina shouted. "None of your business," Bakugo shouted back. "Whatever, I'm going back to my room," he muttered, standing up, until a hand grabbed his wrist. Turning around he saw Kirishima. "What?" Bakugo asked. Nothing, never mind." Kirishima let go of Bakugo's wrist and shook his head. Bakugo shrugged it off and went upstairs to his bedroom, his heart beating fast. Bakugo thought, sitting down on his bed in his thoughts. He never admitted it, but he cares for the whole class. He was scared that his classmates wouldn't support him and hate him. What if someone was homophobic? He knew that he put up an rough and mean front, looking like he didn't care what others thought about him, but he does. 618 words. Bakugo was still awake in his bedroom, now deciding to FaceTime his boyfriend. The phone rang until he answered, his emerald eyes filled with worry, his green hair perfectly sculpting his chiseled face, his jawline sharp. B was utterly perfect in Bakugo's eyes. "Kaken. What's wrong? You never call this late. Are you okay? Who do I need to kill?" Izuku spoke out. Bakugo chuckled. No, you don't have to kill anyone, Izu. It's just I told everyone that I am in a relationship." Izuku smiled brightly. "I'm proud of you, Kaken. But you look conflicted. You can talk to me, I'll listen." "I'm just scared of what they will think when I tell them I have a boyfriend. I haven't told them I am gay yet, so I'm freaking out right now," Bakugo admitted, sighing. Katsuki, I'm sure they will support you, and if they don't I will personally shove my foot up their butt, but even if they don't it's not going to change the fact that you're mine and I'm yours, Izuku says, using Bakuga's first name to tell Bakugo that he was serious. Thank you Izu. I love you. Anyways, how are you doing in your classes? Bakugo asked, getting comfortable on his bed. He saw Izuku shrug on his phone. I love you too. And classes are okay, but if you were here it would be better. Izuku pouted. Bakugo rolled his eyes with a smile. Yes, same. All these extras are annoying the hell out of me. I swear one day I'm gonna kill all of them. Izuku chuckled, butterflies erupting in Bakuga's stomach from the sound of it. Izuku's voice always made his face heat up. His voice was smooth and deep, never failing to make Bakugo flustered. Ah, kitten, are you flustered? Izuku smirked, seeing Bakuga's blush. Bakugo immediately blushed 10 times worse, moving his phone so you couldn't see his face. Oi, let me see how cute you look, Katsuki, Bakugo obeyed, showing his red face to Izuku as he grew more aroused. So cute, it's late Katsuki, you need to go to bed? But you, Bakugo stuttered but was cut off. What do I do, Katsuki hm? Izuku asked with an amused grin. He knew exactly what he was doing to Bakugo. Since they weren't near each other and couldn't touch each other, instead they did it on the phone. It was embarrassing at first, but they got used to it. Bakugo bit the inside of his cheek. Nothing, I need to go to bed. I love you, bye. He said quickly, hanging up before Izuku could say anything and tossing his phone to the side with a blush. Bakugo cursed. He could feel his Urkton twitching, begging to be touched. He gave in, pulling his down with his boxers and his shirt so he was completely naked on his bed. He wrapped his hand around his pee-pee, stroking it at a fast pace. Izuku Bakugo, while still stroking his pee-pee, he spat on his fingers on his free hand a bit, sliding in two to his entrance. Bakugo arched his back, squeezing his eyes shut as he pumped his fingers and stroked his pee-pee at the same time with a quick pace. See close Izuku's. He imagined Izuku big but soft hands stroking his pee-pee instead of his own, Izuku fingers inside of him. At that thought, Bakugo came with a throaty His back arched and his toes curled as cum spilled on his stomach from his red tip. His body shuddered as he came down from his high, pulling his fingers out of his hole and stopped stroking his pages. Bakugo sat there for a minute, heavily breathing as he felt sweat on his forehead. His body flushed a deep red. After recovering, he snatched a tissue and cleaned the cum off his stomach, throwing the tissue in the trash. He grumbled and got up, already naked, so walked into his bathroom and turned on the shower. After showering, he was exhausted, flopping onto his bed with just boxers on and picking up his phone. Hey Izu, good night, I love you, or whatever. 2 hearts. Good night kitten, I love you too. Kissing catface. 721 words. Bakugo got up the next morning with a groan, remembering what he did last night making him go red. He shook his head and got ready for school, grabbing his bag and phone. Slamming his dorm door shut, he started walking downstairs. It was pretty early, only Uraraka, Ida, Todoroki, and Ojiro were up. Others in their room, sleeping or just wanting to be alone. Bakugo slumped down on the couch in the lounge area where light conversation was going on. He took out his phone and scrolled to Izuku's contact only to see he already texted. Good morning loser. Bakugo scoffed, angrily typing on his phone. Their good morning texts were always playful banter, but usually whenever they talk there will be name calling. They always knew they didn't mean it. Sup nerd. Bakugo snickered, knowing Izuku's least favorite name calling was nerd. Katsuki, you know not to call me that, don't you? So what are you gonna do, huh? Once I see you again you'll know. Kitten. Shivers went down Bakugo's spine, knowing that the threat was true. Look who's silent now. Such a bad boy. Hey, stop that, I'm with the class, dumbass. Bakugo knew that Izuku knew what he was doing. Izuku knew how to get Bakugo flustered, and it was obviously working as Bakugo glanced around with a pink hue to his cheeks to see if anyone was looking. Fine, but call me at lunch, okay? Okay, I will. Love you too, loser. Bakugo walked into class with his usual scowl, sitting down with a huff as Denki, Mina, Siro, and Kirishima came to his desk. So, you gonna spill about your girlfriend? Mina teased, smirked. Bakugo tensed at the word girlfriend. Shut up, raccoon eyes. Bakugo set off some small explosions in his hand. Everyone rushed to their seats as Izawa slammed open the classroom door and groggily walked up to the small brown podium. So today we have some visitors from USA. They are coming all the way from the best singing school in America. Anyways, they will be here in about 10 minutes, so do whatever until they get here. Izawa explained, sipping up his yellow sleeping bag and flopping onto the floor. The class immediately erupted into chaos, chatting about the US students. "Aren't you excited?" Mina exclaimed, jumping up and down. They were all again around Bakuga's desk as Bakuga scoffed. "No, just some more extras I have to deal with." He rolled his eyes. Come on. At least we get to learn about what they do in America." Kirishima says, Bakuga shrugging. Finally 10 minutes later, a lady with a skirt and blouse on opens the door, comes in and stands in front of the class. Let's just say there is no language barrier. Hello everyone, I am Mrs. Johnson. I teach at Springfield, the best singing school in America. And today I have brought my class, which is the best in the school, to meet you. Students. Everyone. Come on in. Mrs. Johnson exclaims. Suddenly there are about 20 students walk in and stand in front of the class. Bakuga wasn't paying attention, staring off into space until a familiar voice spoke up. "Hey. I'm Izuku Midoriya and I'm excited to be here today." Izuku grinned as Bakuga's head whipped around, staring at Izuku wide-eyed. Bakuga didn't care at this point, and tears gathered up in his eyes as he ran up to Izuku and jumped on him, wrapping his arms around his neck and legs around his waist. Izuku chuckled and held Bakuga just as tight. "I missed you, Katsuki," Izuku whispered in his ear. Bakuga stayed silent as he clung onto Izuku. Do you know each other?" Kirishima asked, speaking over the silence, a little jealousy in his voice. Everyone in Class 2A were shocked that Bakuga got hugged by Izuku. And Bakuga wasn't trying to kill him. What was this magic? 688 words. "Have you told them yet?" Izuku whispered in Bakuga's ear as he still clung into him. Bakuga shook his head. "Yeah, we knew each other. We're childhood friends, but I had to move to America." Izuku smiled at Kirishima. Kirishima nodded. "Oh, okay." Izuku set Bakuga down on his feet. You're so short, Katsuki," Izuku chuckled. Over the years of Izuku being in America, he grew a lot. He is about 6 feet 1 inch now, and Katsuki is 5 feet 8 inches. Bakuga huffed. "You're just AF giant," he rolled his eyes. Izuku ruffled Bakuga hair and Bakuga scowled but noticeably blushed. "They look close," Mina whispered to the Baku squad. Everyone nodded in agreement. "I missed you," Bakuga murmured, having to look up to see those captivating emerald eyes. Izuku smirked. I won't forget what you called me this morning," Bakuga thought. I don't know what you mean," he nervously chuckled. Izuku looked him up and down, humming. "Sure, kitten," he whispered in Bakuga's ear before trailed his hand down his back. Izuku were in front of the class. Izuku ignored Bakuga, slowly moving his hand down Bakuga's back down to his butt. Izuku squeezed his butt, making Bakuga yelp. "Don't do that." Bakuga's face was pink as he turned so Izuku couldn't get to his backside. He slapped Izuku's forearm, Izuku pouting. Fine. Izuku playfully rolled his eyes. School went on, the Americans introducing themselves to the class and making friends. Izuku met the Baku squad and he met Uraraka, Todoroki, Ida, and Tsu. Izuku didn't like how Kirishima looked at his boyfriend. It was obvious that he liked him. Izuku hated it when Kirishima flirts with Bakuga and tries to get his attention. Izuku desperately wanted to bash Kirishima's face in and say, "Shut the F up, he's mine," but he respected that Bakuga wanted to wait until coming out to the class. It was finally lunchtime, Izuku dragging Bakuga out of the classroom into a random janitor's closet. "Izuku, what are we doing in here?" Bakuga trailed off. Izuku locked the door, turning around and smirked. "You know what we're doing?" Izuku, "we're in school. We can't." Bakuga blushed. He wanted Izuku's touch after so long, but they were still in school. Izuku pouted and grabbed Bakuga's hips, pulling him closer. "Come on, just a little." Bakuga looked up, their eyes locked as Izuku's emerald eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of the janitor's closet. Bakuga gulped, glancing down at Izuku's lips. They both leaned in, smashing their lips together. The feeling of their lips on each other's after so long felt like bliss. As they made out, Izuku's hands roamed Bakuga's body, caressing every curve. Izuku Bakuga murmured against Izuku's lips as they both pulled away for air. Yes, kitten. Izuku breathed out, resting his hands on Bakuga's hips. As much I would love to continue this, I'm hungry as F, Bakuga pouted, lazily throwing his arms on Izuku's shoulders and around his neck. Izuku chuckled, okay, let's go to lunch then, he says, grabbing under Bakuga's thighs, picking him up effortlessly. Izuku, still carrying Bakuga, walked into the lunchroom. Oh, Midoriya. Over here. Mina called out, standing up and waving her hand. Izuku walked over there, setting Bakuga on his feet before sitting down. Bakuga sat down next to Izuku, secretly holding his hand under the table. So, what's it like in America? Mina asked, eyes sparkling. Izuku shrugged, it's okay, but here is better. Bakuga ate lunch as the Baku Squad, as they call themselves, asked Izuku questions about himself. So you got a girlfriend? Mina asked, wiggling her brows. Izuku chuckled, no, I got a boyfriend. Bakuga sent a warning glance to Izuku. Ah, so cute. Do we know him? Mina shouted. Bakuga thought, looking at his friends around the table. Yes, you do know them, but I'm not telling. Izuku grinned as Mina pouted. Fine. But he'll find out someday. She declared. Izuku playfully rolled his eyes. Sure you will. Kirishima felt somewhat relieved that Izuku had a boyfriend and wasn't trying to get with Bakuga, but he didn't know that Izuku's boyfriend Bakuga. Kirishima has liked Bakuga from the beginning. When they first met, he thought he was appealing and his personality was unique, but in a good way. He always tried to hint at Bakuga, but Bakuga never got it. Kirishima hasn't built enough courage to ask Bakuga out, but now he knows that he was in a relationship he was going to back off. But that didn't stop him from liking him. Feelings didn't go away that easy, even if you tried. 798 words. As the day ended, it was around 3 p.m. Oh, and everyone. The U.S. Students will be staying in your dorms. Whether it's on the couches in the lounge area or in your dorm, they will stay there. Mr. Aizawa announced as the bell rang. Bakuga walked out with the Baku Squad, Izuku chatting with his new friends. An irk mark appeared on Bakuga's forehead as he watched Uraraka cling onto Izuku's arm, pushing her bub against Izuku's arm. Izuku looked uncomfortable, but he was too much of a sweetheart to just push her off. Bakuga knew this and stomped over, ripping Izuku away from Uraraka. Sorry, round face, you'll be taking him. Bakuga looked her up and down, then dragged Izuku away to his group who was watching with wide eyes. Thanks, Kaken. Izuku smiled brightly with a small blush on his cheeks. Tisich, you're welcome. Bakuga stifled a laugh at the nickname Izuku hated. Bakuga Katsuki, I swear. Bakuga eyes widened as he heard his full name come from Izuku's mouth, immediately sprinting down the hallway towards the exit, Izuku hot on his trail with both of them laughing. The Baku Squad blinked as they disappeared down the hallway, laughter echoing off the wall. That was a sight to see, Denki spoke up over the silence. Everyone nodded in agreement. I know. I can't believe. Bakuga laughed. Siro exclaimed. Since the new kids are here, let's play games tonight. Like truth or dare, something like that to get to know them. Mina suggested. That's a great idea, Mina. Let's get everyone in the lounge area tonight. Bakuga stopped running as he made it to the dorms, as well as Izuku. They caught their breath before looking at each other and burst out laughing. Come on. They'll make food. Bakuga gestured Izuku to follow him. They made it in the kitchen, Izuku sitting down and watching Bakuga cook. The way his hips moved and when he bent over, it was like he was taunting Izuku. As Bakuga was cooking, he could feel the burning gaze of his boyfriend on him. He smirked a little as he swayed his hips when he walked a little and arching his back more when he bent down to show off his butt. But Bakuga froze as Izuku put each arm on each side of him, trapping him against the counter. Bakuga's but rubbing up on Izuku pages. Bakuga stopped what he was doing, his breathing picking up. Izuku just hummed in response. Now instead of gripping the counter, his hands sat on Bakuga's waist. Izuku slid his hand down to Bakuga's breathe line and the other up to Bakuga's chest. Izuku slipped his hand into Bakuga's and boxers, immediately stroking Bakuga's pee-pee while his other hand went up Bakuga's shirt and twisted his NPL. SHW can't. People are coming in. Bakugo whispered yelled, hearing the chatter of people coming into the dorms. Shoo. Just let me take care of you, kitten, Izuku comforted, stroking Bakugo's pee-pee faster. Bakugo's body quivered as he threw his head back onto Izuku's built chest, his eyes squeezed shut and his face a pink hue. You love when I slide your pee-pee, don't you? Izuku chuckled lowly, riding his hand that was playing with Bakugo's NPL up to Bakugo's neck instead and keeping his head where Izuku could see his face. Nay yes, I love it, Bakugo whimpered in Izuku hold. He could feel Izuku's erkton pressing up against his lower back, almost right on his butt. The risk of being caught only turned on Bakugo more as he could hear more people in the lounge area chatting away. The feeling of Izuku's soft and big hand around his pee-pee and Izuku's other hand around his throat felt euphoric. He hadn't felt Izuku's touch in so long, almost 2 years now. Hello. Oh Midoriya. Bakugo froze as he heard Denki's voice from behind him. Izuku didn't budge though, stroking Bakugo's pee-pee even faster than before and making sure that his body blocked off Bakugo's own smaller body to make sure that Denki didn't see what they were doing. Yes, Denki, Izuku asked, smirked down at Bakugo who slapped his hand on his mouth to stop the whimpers to come out. Bakugo felt the warm build in his stomach. It was about to snap. FF go na see come? Bakugo whispered so only Izuku could hear. His legs trembled and barely held him up as his eyes rolled back while he came in his whole body shuddering. Bakugo almost collapsing on the ground, but Izuku firmly held him up by his waist, taking his hand out of Bakugo. Well, in a little we are going to do games, so come join, Denki exclaimed, oblivious to what just happened. Denki could only see Izuku from his perspective, as Izuku was covering Bakugo's body with his own. Okay, thanks for letting me know, Denki nodded and walked out, Bakugo now heavily breathing and red-faced as he still came down from his high. Izuku turned Bakugo around so they were facing each other and kisses his forehead. You did so good, kitten. Bakugo smiled softly at him, despite being that he just did that and almost got caught by Denki of all people. 911 words. I'm bad at writing spicy scenes, but I try. Loudly crying face kiss mark. Izuku picked Bakugo up bridal style, carrying him out of the kitchen. Bakugo wrapped his arms around his neck, stabilizing himself so he didn't fall, even though he knew Izuku had a tight hold on him. Hey Izu-chan. Are you joining us for games tonight? Uraraka popped up out of nowhere, eyes glared at Bakugo who was still in Izuku's arms. Bakugo scoffed and rolled his eyes, one hand letting go of Izuku's neck and flipping her off. Katsuki thus. We will be down in a second. Izuku rushed around her, going up the stairs quickly. Beach, Bakugo muttered. Izuku just chuckled. They made it to Bakugo's dorm, Izuku setting Bakugo down on his feet and closing the door behind them. Ima take a shower, Bakugo says, grimacing at the sticky feeling in his. Okay Kaken, you'll be waiting. Izuku sat on Bakugo's bed, pulling out his phone. After Bakugo's shower, he got on a new set of clothes. Okay. Let's go down there I guess. Bakugo huffed. It'll be fine Katsuki. Just stay by me if you want. Izuku smiled down at his boyfriend. Yeah, they both walked down the stairs and into the lounge area that had like 40 kids all around the room talking in their groups. It was a little overwhelming for Bakugo, but he calmed down when Izuku discreetly rubbing soothing circles on his back. Bakugo sighed, it'll be fine. You can go hang out or whatever. It'll be with the idiots. Okay, just come to me if you need anything okay, Izuku hesitantly answered. Bakugo nodded. Izuku was hesitant to let Bakugo go on his own in a big crowd because of Bakugo's panic attacks. If he was crowded by people he could get overwhelmed and feel like he's trapped. Izuku watched as Bakugo quickly moved over to the Baku squad and sat down with them. He sighed before going over to Todoroki and Ida. He made good friends with them. Todoroki was chill and cool. Ida was strict, but he was a fun guy to talk to and have a conversation with. Except Uraraka was always around them. Izuku didn't Uraraka, just mildly disliked her. Okay, he did dislike her. She doesn't know what personal space is and it was getting annoying very quickly. Hey Todoroki! Izuku exclaimed, sitting next to the dual-haired male. Todoroki smiled slightly. Hey Midoriya? Ida. Hey. Izuku greeted, looking over at him. Hello Midoriya, how are you? Ida asked with his usual robotic movements. I'm doing fine, Izuku sighed, leaning back and relaxing. Until he heard it. Izuku-chan, 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮 shouted, latching herself onto Izuku's arm as she sat next to him. He hesitantly smiled. Hey, he says blandly. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮 giggled, smashing her bub up against his arm. Izuku shivered, feeling a deadly glare, turning slowly to meet the gaze of Bakugo's blazing crimson eyes. Bakugo was who does she think she is? That's his boyfriend. He could feel the bad feeling swell up in his chest. He hated the feeling. He couldn't help but feel it as 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧 pouted up at Izuku, fluttering her eyelashes at him. Bakugo thought sadly. And mark appeared on Izuku's forehead. He could feel the jealousy just off of Bakugo. He didn't want him to be jealous and have to feel like that. Especially because of some girl. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧. Get the F off of me. Izuku passive-aggressively smiled at her, shoving her off of his arm. Izuku could definitely be scary. His aura that surrounded him was dark and deadly. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧 shivered before scoffing. Izu. Come on. Don't be like that. She exclaimed. How about we go up to my room? She whispered, twirling a piece of her hair. I'm gay, Izuku stated, staring into her eyes with seriousness. She just pouted again. That's okay, I can just make you buy SXL. Izuku was about to punch this beach into oblivion. He calmed down, not wanting to cause a big scene. You're disgusting. Please get away from me, he says firmly. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧 finally got up and walked away. Izuku sighed and closed his eyes, rubbing his temple with his 2 fingers. Who the F says that, he muttered. Bakugo watched happily as the scene played out. Bakugo thought, face turning red when he thought back to what happened in the kitchen. Oh, why are you blushing? Is it your girlfriend? Mina shouted. Bakugo scoffed. No raccoon eyes. Bakugo thought about how they almost got caught by Denki. He thought embarrassed. 820 words. Sorry, not much happened in this chapter. They'll try to make it more eventful in the next chapter. Kiss mark. The little get-together continued. Izuku and Bakugo now sitting next to each other, only talking and no touching to not make it too obvious that they were dating. Okay everyone. Time to start playing game. Get in a circle. Mina yells out, loud enough for everyone to hear. All 40 students get in a huge circle/oval around the lounge area. On Bakugo's right was Izuku, on his left was Denki. What are we playing first? Someone asks. Spin the bottle, 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧𝙮 suggests. Around the circle were murmurs of agreement. Sorry guys, but I'm out on this one. I have a boyfriend. Izuku states, smiling. Come on. Just on the cheek then. Mina whines. Izuku glanced over at Bakugo, who just nodded, saying it was okay. Izuku shrugged. Okay then. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧 went first, spinning the bottle that was empty, and it landed on a guy with white fluffy hair, purple eyes and some piercings. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧 blushed a little, crawling over and leaning in, as well as the white-haired male. It was a firm but simple kiss, both of them pulling away breathless. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧 blushed heavily before scurrying back to his seat. Anyways, my turn, Mina exclaimed. She spinned the bottle, it landing on a girl with pink hair and eyes. The girl blushed slightly and looked down shyly. Mina giggled before crawling over to her, softly putting her lips on the girl's. The girl kissed back, and slowly it turned heated as Mina ran her hand through the girl's hair. Everyone watched in slight shock. Okay. Get AF room. Bakugo yelled, impatient. Both girls pulled away, Mina smiling at the girl, then sitting back in her seat. They both seemed to like the kiss a lot. I ship, Izuku whispered to Bakugo. Bakugo smiled lightly. Same, he whispered back, nodding. Everyone played a couple more rounds of spin the bottle, until it was Bakugo's turn. He spun the bottle hesitantly and it landed on Mina. He breathed out in relief, knowing Mina was lesbian. Mina smiled, Bakugo crawling over and quickly pecking her on the lips. He sat back down next to Izuku, who was confused. Why did you kiss her on the lips? Izuku whispered, she's lesbian, we're super close and kiss each other's cheeks all the time. Bakugo explained. Izuku nodded since he was okay with it. Izuku was the last person to go. He spun the bottle. It landed on a random girl. Bakugo snickered as he saw 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙧𝙮's face. She was angry and sad. Izuku quickly just pecked her on the cheek and sat down. Okay. Next game, let's play truth or dare. Mina yelled, everyone agreeing. I'll go first, Mina grinned. Bakugo. Truth or dare? Bakugo knew how brutal Mina was with dare, Truth, he answered. If you had to have a TSM with people in this room, who would it be with and why? Mina smirked. Bakuga's eyes widen. What the F? Okay fine, he sighed in defeat. First would be Izuku, since we're childhood friends and have known each other for a long time, Bakugo says awkwardly, glancing at Izuku who already knew that he was going to be chosen. The next person. I really don't know, but if I had to choose then Mina I guess. Bakugo shrugged. Why me? Mina shouted. Since we're close, and it would never happen anyways since you're lesbian, Bakugo explains. Mina already came out to the class, so it was okay for him to say it. True, Mina nods. Okay, my turn to extras. Dunce face, truth or dare? Bakugo asked. Dare? Denki exclaimed, unfazed by the nickname. I dare you to dirty talk into Shitty Hair's ear. Bakugo smirked slightly, Denki and Kirishima turning pink. Okay, since Denki was next to Kirishima, he leaned over and started whispering. Nobody could hear what he was saying, but Kirishima turned as red as his hair. Mina was fangirling and Bakugo was smiling smugly at them. They look good together, don't you think? Bakugo whispered in Izuku's ear. Izuku chuckled, yeah. Hopefully Kirishima will stop flirting with you. Bakugo raised a brow at that. Shitty Hair was flirting with me. Izuku mentally face-bombed. Yes kitten, he was flirting with your dense butt, he whispered. Am I really that dense? Yes, the truth or dare went on. Izuku was now called on by Mina. Midoriya, truth or dare? Truth. Bakugo looked between Mina and Izuku with wide eyes. Bakugo thought as Mina was smiling like she just won the lottery. What's the kinkiest thing you've ever done, she asked. Bakugo turned red, turning to Izuku who only wore a smirk. Well, a lot of things actually. Me and my boyfriend have tried knife play once. He absolutely loved it, but I didn't want to hurt him accidentally. Izuku chuckled, everyone staring at him in shock. Yeah, Bakugo was kinda MSCST. Oh, and choking, edging, impact play, degrading and praising Kankai. Izuku added nonchalantly, not ashamed at all or fazed by anything he said. Bakugo shoved his face in his hands, so no one could see how he was exploding with redness. Demon Midoriya, Mina was the first one to break the silence that fell over the room. Kangwai Akio, Izuku's best friend from America but was also Japanese, scoffed and muttered under his breath. Aiko has heard Izuku talking to Bakugo on FaceTime. He was traumatized. Beach, you're the one who has a PSSKNK? I do not have a PSSKNK, Aiko firmly stated. Izuku playfully rolled his eyes. Yeah sure. Why does he get all the girls? I wish I could. Mineta was cut off by Siro taping his mouth shut then taping him to the ceiling. Thank you Siro, the girls thanked him, Siro just smiling in return. And no, I don't get girls. I'm 100% gay. Izuku shook his head at what Mineta said. I can't believe you just said that to everyone, Bakugo murmured, still in shock from what Izuku had said. Bakugo had whispered it lowly so only Izuku could hear. Izuku chuckled at his red-faced boyfriend. Sorry kitten, but it's the game I had too, Bakugo groaned. 1104 words. This is blowing up fast. Thank you. And LT3 hopefully this chapter was good, I didn't reread it. Nothing eventful happened in the rest of playing Truth or Dare, so they decided the next game they played was Never Have I Ever. Okay, so, if you have done it put your finger down, but if you haven't then just keep your finger up, Mina explained to everyone. They all nodded. I'll go first. Never have I ever been drunk. Bakugo, Izuku, Siro, Denki, Sue, Uraraka, Todoroki and some other random people put their fingers down. Bakugo, Kirishima yelled. Bakugo shrugged. What? You've been drunk without us, Siro shouted, looking betrayed. Weirdos of course I have. Calm down kit, Kakin, Izuku says, almost calling Bakugo kitten. Okay, next is Never have I ever had C in a public place, Denki went next. Bakugo hesitantly put his finger down as Izuku put his down as well. Everyone stared at them in shock. What? Midoriya where? Tell us. Mina shouted. Well, school bathroom, movie theater bathroom, janitor closet. Izuku shrugged, stopping there so Bakugo doesn't absolutely kill him. That is strictly prohibited. SXL activities should be private. Ida chopped the air. Izuku snickered, thinking back to what happened in the kitchen. Now Bakugu, tell us, Denki screamed. No you fucktards. I am not saying F anything. The Baku squad sighed in defeat. Okay, next is me. Never have I ever tried flavored condoms. Zero says, looking around the circle. Izuku sighed and put his finger down. It was one time, he spoke. Bakugo narrowed his eyes at the Baku squad and put his finger down. Don't you dare say anything or I'll kill you. They put their hands up in surrender. It was Kirishima's turn. Okay, never have I ever sent a NDE, Uraraka, Todoroki, Bakugo, Mina and Izuku put a finger down. Mina what the F, Bakugo shouted. Hey! Why are you yelling at me when you put your finger down too? She yelled back. Bakugo just rolled his eyes. Todoroki. I would have never thought. Izuku raised a brow at him. Todoroki shrugged. Todoroki. Retained from doing such things. Todoroki and Izuku ignored Ida. Do we have any drinks? Bakugo called out. Mina grinned, of course. Come on everyone. To the kitchen. She marched off. The people who didn't want drinks just stayed on the couches or floor and talked while everyone who wanted drinks got up and flooded into the kitchen. All right. Here are the drinks. Mina shouted, handing over red solo cups to everyone. Thanks Raccoon Eyes, Bakugo muttered as she handed him a cup. She smiled. Of course Bakugo. She went off to give some more drinks while Bakugo turned to Izuku who also had a drink in his hand. What's wrong Katsuki? Izuku asked, scanning Bakugo's face. How can you always tell? Bakugo groaned. So I was right, something is wrong. You know you can tell me anything Katsuki. Izuku smiled reassuringly before taking a sip of his drink. Bakugo sighed, it's just, I don't want to have to hide the fact that we're dating anymore. But I'm scared. Like even though I know they will be supportive, it's just hard. He stared into his cup as he swished it around. Katsuki look at me, Bakugo looked up, locking eyes with Izuku's emerald ones. I'll be there with you. It'll be okay, everything would be fine. Some people may not support and some will. That's just how it goes. It is hard, I know. But remember to stick to the people who support you for who you are. I'm sure all of your friends will support you anyways. When I told them I was gay they didn't seem to mind. Still, it's your choice if you want to come out or not. I'm not pushing you into doing it. God, why do you have to be all sentimental and saying all the perfect things? Bakugo muttered with faint pink blush dusting his cheeks. Izuku chuckled. Whatever kitten. Bakugo bit the inside of his cheek at the name and the tone of Izuku's voice. Don't say it like that, he mumbled. Say it like what? Izuku stepped closer to Bakugo, now looking down at him. People already filed out of the kitchen, now in the living room just talking. Izuku chuckled. You loved it when I pinned you to the counter and got you off, huh? Of course you did. Bakugo's breath caught in his throat, his heart thumping out of his chest. He thought Izuku might hear it. Cliffhanger 782 words. Should next chapter be spicy? I haven't reread it yet so don't know if it's okay or not. Loudly crying face and OMG thank you so much for 2K reads, and LT, 3 Bakugo and Izuku's eyes were locked, Izuku looking down at Bakugo with a light smirk on his lips. Bakugo kept silent. Izuku set his drink in the counter, taking Bakugo's drink out of his hand and putting it aside as well. Then Izuku grabbed onto Bakugo's hips, moving him forward so they were up against each other. Bakugo still looked up into Izuku's eyes and down at his lips. Bakugo put his hands around Izuku's neck, quickly pulling him down, crashing their lips together into a sloppy makeout. Izuku's hands slowly slid down onto Bakugo's lower back, pushing him even closer, grinding their bodies together. Bakugo thought as he reached up and ran his fingers through Izuku's hair, tugging on it a bit. They both pulled back, catching their breath when, what the F, Bakugo and Izuku immediately WHP their heads around to the entrance of the kitchen to see Mina standing there with wide eyes looking between the two. Oh my, Mina starts off, before Bakugo ran over and covered her mouth with his hand. Shut up dumbass, he yelled through clenched teeth. He sighed, his heart thumping in his chest. He didn't know if it was from the makeout or the fact that Mina had caught them. Just, don't scream or anything dipshit. Bakugo narrowed his eyes at Mina, taking his hand off of his mouth. She immediately squealed, fangirling. OMG OMG OMG. You guys are so cute. Perfect couple. Why didn't you tell me? Mina rants, shaking Bakuga's shoulders. He scoffs, pushing her hands off of his shoulders. I wasn't ready. But I kinda want to tell everyone tonight. Bakuga was actually relieved that it was only Mina who had caught them. She kept secrets, especially if they were personal. Also, her and Bakuga were close, BFFs as Mina would say. Okay, cool. And don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Mina winked. Well boys, have fun on each other's faces, I have a party to attend. She turns around and runs off giggling. Bakuga smiled lightly and shook his head. He felt arms slither around his waist. Are you okay with her knowing? Izuku asked. Bakuga leaned back into Izuku's chest. Yeah, it's okay. But I do want to tell everyone tonight. Bakuga turned around with Izuku's arms still around his waist so he was facing him. Izuku hummed, leaning down and setting his forehead on Bakuga's, both of their eyes fluttering closed. I'm excited to show everyone you're mine. Izuku quickly pecked Bakuga's lips. Bakuga scoffed, pushing Izuku off of him but took a hold of his hand. Let's just go back to the tea party. Bakuga and Izuku sat down next to each other as before, Mina winking and wiggling her eyebrows at them. Bakuga rolled his eyes and huffed, turning to Izuku who just was smiling at him. Honestly, the rest of the night was pretty chill. Until 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙧 spoke up. So, Izuku, who is your so-called boyfriend? She asked loudly, causing everyone to stop and look at her and Izuku. Izuku glanced at Bakuga, who nodded saying it was all right. Bakuga looked calm on the outside but on the inside he was panicking. He told himself in his head, actually I want to announce something. My boyfriend is Kaken. Izuku exclaimed with a smile, leaning over and pecking Bakuga's cheek. Bakuga grumbled incoherently and turned away noticeably blushing, crossing his arms. The whole room erupted in questions and congratulations. Y'all are cute together, Denki yelled. Agreed. DMN Baku bro. I didn't know you were gay. Or are you bisexual? Pansexual? Kirishima spoke, sitting beside Bakuga. Nah, just God, it's weird saying it out loud now. Bakuga says and shook his head. Manly bro, proud of you, Kirishima exclaimed. Even if he did have a small crush on the blonde, he wasn't going to be a pages. Thanks I guess shitty hair, Bakuga huffed slightly. He was grateful to have friends that support him. Really? Bakuga? 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢 looked at Bakuga with a look of disgust. Izuku raised his brow. Yes. Is there a problem? Yes there is. You can't date him. She exclaimed, standing up. And why not Kirby? Izuku smirked a little. Bakuga snickered at the name. You're out of his league. I mean just look at him. Come on, you could do better. You could choose me for example. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢 walking towards Izuku, swaying her hips. Izuku put his lips in a thin line before sighing, turning to Bakuga and abruptly slamming their lips together in front of everyone. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢 stopped in her tracks, watching in shock and disgust as they made out slowly and passionately. The room was silent as well, only small fangirling noises in the background. Defo Mina, a popped sound was heard as Izuku pulled away from Bakuga's slightly red and puffy lips, Bakuga's cheeks flushing as he realized they were still in front of everyone. You know what? You won't get any piece of me then. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢 stomped off. I don't want your dusty pee-pee Kirby. Bakuga snorted after Izuku shouted that, laughing and leaning on Izuku's shoulder for support. Everyone soon was laughing along and started chatting normally again. God, I love you, Bakuga whispered, still leaning on Izuku's shoulder. Simp, Izuku says simply, tilting his head so it was laying on top of Bakuga's spiky, but soft, hair. Shut up, you're the one who calls me kitten. Whatever, idiot. I love you too. 1010 words. Don't worry, that's not the end of the story. Smiley face. Hopefully y'all like this chapter. I was kinda stuck on it for some time. And seriously, thank you so much for 3K reads. And LT, 3 Bikubatum degrading praising choking gover stimulation orgasm denial. It was after the get-together in the lounge area, Bakuga and Izuku going back into Bakuga's room. Izuku sat down, surprised as Bakuga straddled his lap. Izuku hummed and put his hands on Bakuga's hips, pulling him closer. Izuku and Bakuga breathed out as Izuku ran his hands down his thighs. You did so good out there. I'm proud of you, Katsuki. Izuku smiled softly. Bakugo pursed his lips, trying not to smile at the praise. Izuku leaned closer next to Bakugo's ear. And you'll be good for me tonight, won't you? Izuku's hands swiftly went up Bakugo's shirt, twisting and pinching his nipples. Bakugo lowly and thread his hand through Izuku's hair as Izuku trailed soft kisses in his neck. Use your words, kitten, he murmured against Bakugo's skin. Why yes, it'll be good. Bakugo lifted his arms up so Izuku could take off his shirt easier. Izuku pressed hungry kisses over Bakugo's chest, swirling his hot tongue around his nipples and nipping his teeth on them. Bakugo threw his head back slightly. Izuku turned slightly and pushed Bakugo onto the bed, now hovering over him. He leaned down and continued making love marks and hickeys down Bakugo's stomach to his breathe line. Bakugo breathed became heavy and raspy at all of the touches, goosebumps covering his skin at Izuku's big hands. The size difference between the two always turned Bakugo on, aroused him. He felt so vulnerable to Izuku, considering he was tiny compared to him. He loves the feelings of Izuku's big hands on his waist, pinning his wrists, or anywhere on his skin. Izuku scooted down farther, taking off Bakugo's and boxers. Bakugo yelped in surprise as Izuku's fast actions. Izuku took Bakugo's knees, pushing his legs apart. Bakugo's face flushed from embarrassment as Izuku stared down at his erkton that already dripped a drop of pre-cum. Izuku smirked. Ah. Is my little kitten liking this? No, Izu. Bakugo clutched the sheets below him with his fists knowing this was going to be a long night. Izuku quickly took his own shirt and off, now just in his boxers. He leaned down and settled himself in between Bakugo's thighs, much to Bakugo's embarrassment. Izuku suddenly bit down on Bakugo's thigh. Bakugo yelped at the pain but at how good it felt. Izuku kissed where he bit, on Bakugo's thigh and nipping at his skin slightly. So sensitive, Izuku chuckled at how Bakugo louder and how his body quivered as he playing with his thighs. Izuku's hands slipped under Bakugo's thighs, keeping them spread as he scooted farther down the bed and leaned down. Sticking his tongue out he circled around Bakugo's entrance, feeling Bakugo tense and dash. Bakugo closed his eyes in bliss as Izuku plunged his hot tongue inside his entrance, slowly and teasingly eating him out. Bakugo whined and rocked his hips down so he grinded against Izuku's tongue. Izuku backed away slightly and held on tighter to Bakugo's thighs, whining already Katsuki, as much as I love it you're being a greedy little slut. Bakugo's chest heaved up and down, staring down at Izuku with pleading eyes. All Izuku did was chuckle and lean back in, teasing Bakugo's hole by only sticking his tongue in a little and such. Bakugo held back the need for more, whimpering at the teasing he was getting. Izuku got bored of teasing, his tongue all the way in and out at a fast pace, grabbing a hold of Bakugo's pee-pee and stroking it to match the of his tongue. Bakugo arched his back and squeezed his eyes shut as he wail came from his throat. Izuku. Okay, keep going. His thighs trying to close from the sudden load of pleasure, but Izuku still held his thighs firmly stopping him from closing his legs. Bakugo could feel it building up quickly, his muscles contracting painful, his toes curled, and head throw back on the pillow. Izuku watched Bakugo's reaction, picking up the pace knowing that he was close. OF so close. I'm gonna dash. Bakugo's jaw clenched, teeth grinding together as he looked down at Izuku between his thighs. Bakugo's eyes widened seeing Izuku stop stroking his pee-pee to put his thumb firmly on his tip, stopping him from coming. W8. Izuku Bakugo's thigh twitched as his body quivered from the lack of relief. Izuku stopped his tongue work and leaned back up from his stop between Bakugo's thighs, still keeping his thumb on Bakugo's tip. Really, Katsuki? Trying to come when I didn't tell you to. Bad boy. Izuku raised his brow and smirked. Bakugo squirmed. This is Izuku? Come on, he scowled slightly, but his face, red hue as sweat started to form on his forehead. Listen, Katsuki, no coming unless I say so, Izuku firmly stated, taking his thumb off of Bakugo's pee-pee that was painfully hard, dripping pre-cum and twitching just begging to be touched. Bakugo gulped at Izuku's tone and nodded, keeping it in. Izuku hummed, good. Bakugo couldn't remember that amount of times he was denied from coming. His mind blank, only thinking of one thing. He needed to come. His pee-pee throbbing and thick, twitching and painfully hard. Such a mess for me, Izuku cooed, looking down at Bakugo with a mischievous grin. Bakugo's face was red, sweat dripping down his forehead, tears streaming down the side of his face as he sobbed. Bakugo's skin was hot to the touch, his whole body aching from his muscles spasming and contracting. Please, I need, IJ. Just, Bakugo babbled out. Izuku chuckled, kitten it's okay, if you be good you'll get it soon okay? Bakugo cried out but nodded. A strained was torn out his throat as Izuku swiped his thumb over his tip, spreading it up and down his pee-pee so it was even more lubed up. Izuku easily slid his hand up and down Bakugo's pee-pee, using a variety of pressures and paces. He leaned down and up Bakugo's abs, trailing up to his NPL and on the sensitive and red skin. Please. Too much. Bakugo whimpered through his trembling and puffy lips, harshly digging his fingers into the sheets of his bed as his body shuddered uncontrollably. He's almost there. Only a few more. Can you take it? Izuku says, leaning up and staring intently at Bakugo's reaction. He didn't want Bakugo to be too uncomfortable. If he would use the safe word when he wants to stop. But sometimes his mind is too out of it to really think, so Izuku always watches his reaction just in case. Bakugo nodded quickly. Why yes, Izuku hummed, picking up the pace on Bakugo's pages. Mules and whimpers flowed out of Bakugo's mouth at the pace. His hips weakly bucked up into Izuku's hand, his breath quickening as the same familiar feeling built up. He sobbed, knowing he won't be able to come still. Can't, hold it in. Bakugo blinked away the tears in his eyes, his stomach tensing and his legs shaking. Yes you can. Come on, you can do it kitten. Izuku encouraged Bakugo, pressing hungry kisses down his neck to his chest. The only thing Bakugo focused on at this moment was holding back on coming, a choked sob coming from his throat as he stopped himself from coming once again. Izuku noticed and slowed down his stroking on Bakugo's pee-pee. So proud of you. You did so good for me kitten. 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮. Izuku. Bakugo managed to get out, bucking his hips up in Izuku's hand. Izuku just nodded, getting off the bed for a second to pull his boxers down then crawling back so he was hovering over Bakugo again. Izuku pee-pee was hard, pre-cum dripping off of it. The face of Bakugo was enough to make him throb, knowing he was the only one to make him feel like this. Izuku took his own pre-cum and spread it on his pee-pee for a little bit of lube, then pressed his tip to Bakugo's entrance. He clenched his jaw as he slowly entered his tip into Bakugo, looking up to see Bakugo shaking and throwing his head back. I'll take good care of you. Izuku lifted Bakugo's leg onto his shoulder, pushing his pee-pee into Bakugo, stretching him. As Izuku was 3/4 the way in, Bakugo threw his head back. Alright there, he cried. Izuku shoved his pee-pee all the way in, his balls slapping against Bakugo's butt. Bakugo arched his back, his mouth agape as Izuku started moving fast, no warning or anything. Him into the mattress, the bed creaking with every move. FSHT, Bakugo loudly as Izuku kept abusing his PRCT, overstimulated him. You like that huh? Izuku's breath quickens as his pace is still fast and hard. He takes a hold of Bakugo's neck, squeezing down hard. You like it when I use you? Bakugo breathed the best that he could considering he was being choked. Izuku harder. Izuku complied, picking up the speed and slamming his hips down harder. Bakugo sobbed, Weiss. Please. I love it. You use me. He choked out. Izuku was hitting all the right places, making his mind go blank, and the only thing he could think about was the way Izuku's pee-pee filled him up. Bakugo snapped out of it when Izuku lightly tapped his cheek, still never losing the fast pace he set. Come on, come back to me. You look at me Katsuki. Izuku grinned as Bakugo looked up at him with tears streaming, eyes barely kept open, drool almost trailing down the side of his face. It was a euphoric sight. Izuku about 2. Bakugo eyes screwed shut, his body curling and muscles tensing as he was about to orgasm. TSKSK, what did I say about coming when I didn't give permission? Izuku abruptly pulled his pee-pee out, heavily breathing and his body aching. Bakugo squirmed, desperately scooting down to try and get Izuku's pee-pee back inside of him. I was so close, he whined, tears gathering up in his eyes at his denied orgasm. But you didn't follow my rules, did you? Izuku rubbed his hands on Bakuga's trembling thighs. I am sorry. I'll never do it again. Please. I want you to make me feel good. Bakuga blabbered out, reaching down and grabbing Izuku's hands and placing them on his hips. Izuku chuckled, softly rubbing his thumb in circles on his hips. Then Izuku gripped onto Bakuga's hips tightly, making him groan at the sudden pain. Izuku lined his pee-pee up with Bakuga's hole and snapped his hips forward, starting off with a brutally fast pace. Bakuga gasped, his hands now gripping harshly onto Izuku's biceps. Bakuga's mouth was agape as he gasped for breath, his eyes rolling to the back of his head as he lay limp onto the bed. His body was tired, but he didn't want to stop. Please. Oh God. Bakuga cried out, tears escaping his eyes once again at the pleasure. It was building up quickly, and he could tell it was going to be amazing. Make me come so hard. He clutched onto Izuku's biceps so hard it was drawing a little blood. Izuku didn't care at all though. Don't worry, Katsuki, I will. God, you feel so good around my pages, so perfect. Izuku's jaw clenched as he felt himself getting closer. I'm almost there. Izuku. See, can I come? Izuku smirked down at Bakuga. Finally learned your lesson. I'll tell you when, Kaken. Bakuga's thighs shut tight around Izuku's hips as he held in his orgasm, arching his back and digging his fingernails into Izuku's biceps. Izuku got sloppier as he felt himself get closer. Come for me, Katsuki. Bakuga immediately let it unravel. His toes curled tight, his back arched high, eyes rolled back, some drool dripping down the side of his face. All he saw was white with pleasure, his mind was hazy and blank, not even realizing when Izuku came inside of him. Bakuga slumped onto the bed, still coming down from his orgasm. His eyes closed in bliss as he felt so. Izuku looked down heavily breathing, seeing Bakuga's dazed out look. Katsuki, he didn't get an answer. He got worried quickly and slapped Bakuga's cheek lightly a couple times, grabbing his jaw softly and smiled as it seemed Bakuga was coming back down. Izuku, Bakuga murmured. I'm tired, Izuku chuckled, finally pulling out of Bakuga. Sorry, Katsuki, but we gotta get cleaned up. Bakuga lazily propped himself up by his elbows and looked. Sat Izuku, taking in the sight of his sweat-covered abs. I'll go get the bath ready, you stay and rest, I'll be right back. Izuku rushed into the bathroom, not wanting to be away from Bakuga. Just right after section, Bakuga plopped back down on his back with a huff. 2,260 words? Hopefully y'all like, winky face. Sorry if it's bad. I'm still experimenting with writing. Smut kissing cat face. Baku bottom is immaculate tired face. As Izuku cleaned Bakuga up, he whispered loving things in his ear, telling him how good he is and how much he loves him. I love you, Izuku, Bakuga said tiredly, cuddling up to Izuku's side. I love you too, Katsuki. Izuku leaned down and kissed Bakuga's forehead. Bakuga woke up with a groan, fluttering his eyes open to see a mop of green hair. He smiled slightly and ran his fingers through it, waking Izuku up. Hey, Katsuki, Izuku murmured, his voice husky from just waking up. Hey, Bakuga hummed, his whole body aching. Izuku, can you get me some painkillers? Bakuga hissed from the pain. Izuku chuckled, carefully moving out of bed and throwing some gray sweatpants on. Yeah, I'll be right back. Bakuga got up shakily, hanging onto his desk for support. He sighed, he slowly got dressed, then just scrolled on his phone waiting for Izuku. Izuku walked downstairs, yawning and rubbing his eyes. Oh, hi guys, he waved, seeing people already downstairs and chatting. Hey, Mina greeted. Do any of you have painkillers? Izuku asked, rubbing the back of his neck. Of course. I can make some for you. Momo suggested, smiling. Izuku nodded gratefully. Momo activated her quirk, then made a bottle of painkiller and tossed them to Izuku. Thank you, Momo. Momo just nodded. Izuku was about to make it upstairs when Mina called out for him. Midoriya? Yes. If you want to, tonight Aizawa is letting us go to the beach to have a bonfire. We plan on going to the beach at about 6 and swim, then wait for it to get darker to start the bonfire. Mina explained, smiling brightly. I'll ask Katsuki, but we'll probably go. Katsuki, I got painkillers. Izuku walked in and closed the door behind him. Finally, Bakuga scoffed and snatched them out of Izuku's hand, popping them in his mouth and swallowing. Izuku sat beside Bakugo, then pulled him into his lap so Bakugo was straddling him. Izuku pecked Bakugo's lips. Mina invited us to the beach today to have a bonfire. Bakugo pursed his lips while thinking, wrapping his arms around Izuku's neck. He sighed, I guess? Yay. They are leaving at 6 tonight. Bakugo nodded. Time skipped to the beach. Everyone, meaning Class 2A and some of Izuku's friends from America, was driving to the beach with their swimsuits and towels. They all got there and awed at the beach. Come on, Katsuki. Let's go. Izuku shouted, picking up Bakugo by his waist and throwing him over his shoulder as he ran to the water. Put me down, fucktard. Mina squealed. They are so cute together. Surprisingly, there were a couple of groups on the beach. Mostly teens though, since it was 6 p.m. Izuku made it to the water, setting Bakugo down on the wet and cold sand. They both had swim trunks on, Izuku's green and Bakugo's orange. Izuku took Bakugo's hand and dragged him into the water about knee-high. He is 2F cold, Bakugo yelled, trying to pry his hand out of Izuku's. You'll get used to it, you baby. Izuku playfully rolled his eyes while Bakugo huffed and stopped trying to get away, holding onto Izuku's hand tighter. I'm gonna have to leave in a week, Izuku spoke over the sounds of the waves crashing. Don't remind me, Bakugo whispered, leaning his head on Izuku's forearm. Izuku sighed then smiled down at Bakugo. Let's just have the best time we can before I have to go, Bakugo nodded, trying to stop the tears that gathered in his eyes. It finally seeing Izuku after 1 to 2 years, then he has to leave again. He would miss his touch so bad, his hands around his soft and warm lips on his neck. It all sounded cheesy, but it was true. Baku Midoriya. They both looked over their shoulders to see Mina smiling wide and waving his arm frantically in the air. She was standing next to huge logs that leaned up on each other, creating a big campfire. Everyone sat around it. They walked over holding hands. Oh, Diamond Bakugo, Denki snickered. Bakugo looked at him in confusion. What dunce face? Everyone was now staring at Bakugo. The F are you staring at? Bakugo snarled, clutching on Izuku's hand tight. Y'all had some fun last night, didn't you? Mina wiggled her eyebrows. Bakugo blushed. Mina pointed at Bakugo's chest and legs, him looking down and going even more red from the hickeys and marks that were all over his chest and thighs. Shut the F up, Bakugo muttered through clenched teeth and turned his head away so no one could see his red face. Din, and look at Midobro, Kirishima laughed, pointing at Izuku. He had scratch marks on his biceps and back, and some marks on his neck. Izuku could sense that Bakugo was getting uncomfortable. Stop talking about our private life, you. Izuku narrowed his eyes at Kirishima. Oh, sorry Bakubabe. Didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. Anyways, let's light this up. Mina apologized, smiling and rubbing the back of her neck. Bakugo smiled slightly. It's okay, raccoon eyes. Kirishima didn't apologize, making Izuku side-eye him. Bakugo nudged Izuku's shoulder. Calm down, Izu. But thank you, I guess. He mumbled. Izuku smiled down at Bakugo, who still had red-tinted cheeks. No problem, kitten. Izuku felt Bakugo shudder from the nickname. Bakugo bit his lip. Don't call me that here, you horny BSC. Izuku chuckled. Okay. Let's go help Mina. She's struggling. He suggests, stifling a laugh at Mina, who is trying to pick up a huge log but fails and pouts, angrily mumbling incoherently. Bakugo sighed while shaking his head. She's so weird sometimes. 1003 words, unedited. Not the best chapter, but I tried, comma. I was tired writing this so it might SCK, but woman shrugging after the bonfire was set up but not lighted yet, everyone got up and headed towards the water. Mina, Denki, and Bakugo swam out to the floating dock. I know that doesn't work that way, and stood up on it. SCK it, losers. Mina shouted to the others who were just in the water. Bakugo smirked and slowly made his way up to Mina, then shoved her off the edge into the water. Nice one, Katsuki. Izuku smiled at Bakugo. He was just floating in the water. Mina swam back up and pouted at Bakugo. You SCK. Bakugo rolled his eyes and bent down, holding his hand out for Mina. She grabbed a hold and Bakugo pulled her up onto the dock. Thanks, Baku babe, she thanked him. He just grunted with a nod. Izuku slowly and carefully climbed up on the dock, Mina and Denki noticing him. He put his finger to his lip, signaling for them to be quiet. They smiled lightly and nodded. Before Bakugo could react, Izuku crouched down and slid his arm around Bakugo's waist, so when he stood up Bakugo's feet were dangling. Bakugo yelped in surprise, "Oi oi! Don't dash!" Izuku chuckled and sprinted to the edge, jumping off with Bakugo in his arms. They both swam to the top, popping their heads out of the water. "You effer! I swear I'll kill you!" Bakugo yelled, heavily breathing. Despite his words, he was smiling like an idiot. Izuku didn't answer and just swam over to him, leaning in and firmly placing his lips on his. Bakugo kissed back, then pulled away. "As much as I love this, we will drown." Izuku chuckled and they both swam to where they could touch. Izuku immediately pulled Bakugo in by his waist, then lifted his chin and collided their lips together. Bakugo reached up and ran his hand through Izuku's wet hair. His other hand rested on the nape of Izuku's neck, pulling him down more. Bakugo into Izuku's mouth as Izuku's hand raked down and squeezed his butt. Bakugo leaned back, the warmth of Izuku's lips gone, turning into coldness. He opened his eyes to see Izuku already staring at him. Izuku his lips, looking back at Bakugo's lips and massaging Bakugo's butt. "Oh, mmi it's sore Izuku." Bakugo says, taking his hands off of Izuku's hair and gripping his arms. His butt was still sore from last night. "Oh, I forgot. Sorry, kitten." Izuku smirked, now just resting his hands on Bakugo's hips. "Hey lovebirds. The fire is up." Denki yelled. Bakugo tisked, pulling away from Izuku with light blush on his cheeks from everyone looked at them. They looked over to see everyone sitting around the bonfire. They held hands and walked over, sitting next to each other on the sand a little close to the bonfire to get warmer from the cold water. Izuku draped an arm around Bakugo's shoulder, pulling him against him. Bakugo leaned into him, resting his head on Izuku's chest and closing his eyes while sighing through his nose. "Hey, mind if we join you in the bonfire?" Bakugo opened his eyes to see a group of random teenagers asking if they could join. "Of course," Mina smiled, the group nodding and sitting around the bonfire to get warm. "So, aren't you guys from UA?" a guy asked. "Huh. Yeah, we are." Denki smiled proudly. The guy hummed, looking around the circle until he locked eye with Bakugo. They stared into each other's eyes, Bakugo narrowing his eyes at him. "What's your name?" he asked. "None of your business," Bakugo snapped back. The guy chuckled. "Feisty, I like it." Bakugo rolled his eyes. "Izu, I'm going to the bathroom." He says. "Okay, be careful, love you." Izuku pecked Bakugo's lips. "Love you too," Bakugo says, getting up. He starts walking over to the bathrooms, doing his business and walking out. "Oi," Bakugo looks beside him to see the guy from earlier leaning up against the wall. Bakugo raised his brow. "The F you want?" he asked. Just your number. We could go out sometime." The guy smirked while looking Bakugo up and down. "You," is all Bakugo said, and started walking away until a hand grabbed his wrist. "Come on. Don't be like that. We could have so much fun." The guy grinned, pulling Bakugo closer. "Why is Bakubabe taking so long?" Mina whined. "I don't know. Let's go check if he's alright. Something feels wrong." Izuku says, getting up. "Yeah, come on guys. Let's go find Bakubabe." Mina yells to the Baku squad. They all nod and get up. "He said he went to the bathroom. Let's go check there," Izuku suggests, taking the lead. "Is that Bakubabe's?" Mina questions, squinting her eyes at the bathrooms. Izuku looks closer, seeing a short figure with spiky hair. "Yeah, that's him. But there's someone with him." Izuku speeds up his walking. "DMN. Super feisty, I know you want to, baby." Izuku was about to speak up until his eyes widened when he saw Bakugo punch the guy in the jaw. "What do you not get when I say no?" Beat. Bakugo shook of the pain in his hand, narrowing his eyes at the guy on the ground holding his jaw. "Why, you're crazy," the guy exclaimed, looking up at Bakugo. Bakugo just flipped him off as he walked away. Bakugo looked up, seeing Izuku and the Baku squad looking at him wide-eyed. "What?" he asked. "DMN Katsuki, that was hot," Izuku muttered. You guys saw that?" Bakugo shouted. "Yeah. Go Bakubabe." Mina giggled. "That was manly bro," Kirishima grinned. Bakugo huffed and rolled his eyes. "Whatever. He was just a pages." Izuku chuckled. taking Bakugu's hand and intertwining them. "You guys can go ahead." Izuku ushered the rest off, them nodding and leaving Izuku and Bakugu alone. Izuku looked down at Bakugu, taking a hold of his jaw and raising his head to kiss him firmly. Bakugu kissed back just as much, squeezing Izuku's hand. I'm proud of you, kitten," Izuku hummed, leaning back out of the kiss. Bakugu pursed his lips. "Thanks, I guess," he muttered, a faint blush on the tip of his ears. Izuku leaned down and nuzzled his head into the crook of Bakugu's neck, pressing soft kisses on his skin. "Let's get back to the bonfire," Izuku mumbled against Bakugu's neck. Bakugu threads his hand through Izuku's hair and sighs. 18 words. Running out of ideas. "Oh, what do you guys want to see? Or just random fluff? Write some scenarios in the comments, please." Chapter idea from @Shinsuzum. Thank you for the idea. Smiley face. The rest of the night was all fun and games with jokes. Izuku and Bakugu cuddled on the sand, enjoying their warmth. "Let's go back to the dorms," Mina says, rubbing her hands together as she shivers. Everyone agrees. Time skipped to the next morning. Nothing interesting happened that night at the dorm. Yesterday when Izuku brought up him leaving, he noticed how upset Bakugu looked. He wanted to do something nice, just for them to forget that he was leaving soon and have some alone time together. He quickly but carefully got out of Bakugu's bed, making sure to not wake up Bakugu. It was about 10 a.m., so he had some time before Bakugu was awake. Izuku got dressed and did his morning routine before heading downstairs. "Oh, hey Todoroki," Izuku waved and smiled tiredly. "Midoriya, morning. Where you going?" Todoroki asked, looking up from his phone. "Just getting stuff for Katsuki, gonna have like a spa day or something," Izuku shrugged. Todoroki just nodded, looking back at his phone. Izuku shook off Todoroki's lack of response, walking out of the dorms and started going towards the direction of the store. Bakugu shuffled around, groaning as he got up and rubbed his eyes. He realized Izuku wasn't there, making him look around the room for him. "Izuku," he called out, getting no response. He sighed, flopping back onto the bed, just to rest. The door opened, Bakugu looking over at it for Izuku to scurry inside with a bag. "Oi loser, where were you?" Bakugu asked, sitting up. "Katsuki, you're awake. I just went out to get something for you." Izuku smiled, setting the bag down. Bakugu raised a brow in suspicion, but opened the bag nonetheless. His eyes widened and sparkled with happiness when he saw what was inside. It was his favorite spicy snacks, peel-off masks, the jacket that he has been wanting, nail polish, and his favorite drinks. Idiot. Why did you spend all your money? God damn it, why do you have to do all of this? Bakugu shouted and huffed, turning his face away so Izuku couldn't see the rising blush on his face. Come on Katsuki. I didn't spend all my money, and even if I did it's worth it. Now let's have a spa day. Izuku exclaimed, dumping out all of the contents of the bag. Okay, fine, Bakugu huffed, taking out all of his snacks and putting them in a pile. Peel off mask first, Izuku asked, holding them up with a grin. Bakugu huffs through his nose and shakes his head as Izuku's childish behavior. Yeah you dork, Izuku pouts. Stay still you fucktard, Bakugu shouted, moving Izuku's head back to where it was before. Izuku snickered. Sorry Katsuki, I was just looking at how appealing I am in the mirror. Bakugu rolled his eyes as he carefully took some of the peel-off mask and put it on the smearing utensil, smearing it on Izuku's forehead. Little clips that Bakugu put in were keeping Izuku's fluffy hair out of the way, making sure the peel-off mask doesn't get anywhere near his hair. Bakugu already had his peel-off mask on, done by Izuku. Izuku smiled slightly while looking at Bakugu's calm and concentrated face. He wanted Bakugu to just relax, and it was working. They were both having fun in each other's presence, forgetting that Izuku had to leave in a little less than a week. The F you staring at? Bakugu raised a brow. Izuku realized he had been staring that whole time while he was thinking. Your handsome face duh, Izuku answered. Bakugu made a thin line with his lips, looking annoyed, but Izuku could see the light blush that was forming of his cheeks. Whatever SHT face. Let's do our nails while we wait for the peel-off mask to dry. Bakugu says, searching for the nail polish. Okay, give me your hand, Bakugu ordered, holding his hand out waiting. Izuku obeyed, setting his hand in Bakugu's. You want him green? Bakugo asked, Izuku nodding. Ain't done. I'm so good at this. Bakugo grinned, looking down at his work. Wow kitten, I didn't know you could do nails so well, Izuku awed as he held up his hand to look at his green nails. Bakugo scoffed, of course I can. Who do you think I am? Izuku chuckled, you're my slot, that's who. Bakugo blinked with wide eyes. Shut your horny butt up. Now do my nails, you peasant. Bakugo turned his face away while holding out his hand to Izuku. As you wish, Majesty. This is hard, Izuku pouted, messing up for the 100th time. Din Izu, USCK at this, Bakugo stated, looking at his nails. You're supposed to tell me how much you love them. Izuku whined. I love them so much. Bakugo exclaimed, sarcasm laced in his tone. Izuku whined again, such a crybaby, Bakugo huffed. What did you just call me? Izuku dropped the act and raised his brow at Bakugo, lowering his voice. Nothing, Bakugo spoke quickly without hesitation, avoiding eye contact with Izuku. That's what I thought, Izuku hummed, smirking a little. Izuku reached out and touched Bakugo's cheek, making Bakugo look up. The peel-off mask is dry. You ready? Bakugo nodded, grinning mischievously at Izuku. Why are you? Izuku yelled, getting cut off by Bakugo taking a hold of the edge of the face mask and ripping a quarter of it off. Bakugo burst out laughing, looking at Izuku's pouty face while he held the part of his cheek that stung. Not funny. I think you just ripping my skin clean off. Izuku hissed from the stinging in his cheek, looking at the part where Bakugo ripped it off. Look at how red it is, he exclaimed. Oh, is he that is red? Bakugo muttered, looking at the red patch on Izuku's face. He shrugged. Well, there's no going back now. All you could hear in Bakugo's dorm was screaming, laughing, cuss words and sounds of something hitting the floor. What's going on up there? Mina asked confused. This morning Midoriya said that they were having a spa day, Todoroki explained. Mina made an O with her mouth, then squealed. So cute. I shipped them so much, oh my god, you don't even understand. Mina exclaimed, shaking Kirishima by the shoulders violently. I know, you tell us almost every day, Kirishima sighs, stopping Mina from shaking him anymore. Murmurs of agreement spread around the room, Mina pouting. 1143 words. Everyone, thank you so much for 10k reads. Seriously, it means a lot. And thank you for the people who suggested some ideas, they really helped. And LT3 the next morning Mina came bursting into Bakugo's room, Bakugo and Izuku shooting up from their cuddling position. The F you doing here, raccoon eyes? It's too early. Bakugo shouted at Mina, who stood in the doorway with a grin. Well, it's actually the afternoon and we're going to an amusement parks. Mina screeched excitedly, making Izuku groan. Okay, Mina, just wait for us downstairs. Izuku shooed her out. She nodded frantically and slammed the door shut while running out. Well, that was a way to wake up, Izuku muttered, turning to Bakugo to see him already snoring again. Izuku chuckled quietly and kissed Bakugo's forehead. Wake up, kitten, Bakugo grumbled but sat up with half-lidded eyes. Izuku got up with a stretch, going into the bathroom to get ready. Time skipped to when they go downstairs. Finally, Mina yelled out, seeing Izuku and Bakugo side by side holding hands coming into the lounge area where everyone is. The people who were coming were the Baku squad, Todoroki, Ida, Tsu, Momo, Hagakure, Jairu and some random students from Izuku's class. Yeah. Let's go or whatever. Bakugo rolled his eyes. Are you guys all ready to go? Ida asked. Izuku smiled and nodded, everyone getting up and getting into their cars. Izuku hopped in the back seat of the car that had Mina, Shiro, Denki and Kirishima. Oh, sorry Bakugo, but you're gonna have to sit on someone's lap, Shiro says. Izuku smirked slightly and patted his lap, making Bakugo groan and roll his eyes with the faintest blush on his cheeks. Fine. Bakugo climbed into the car and huffed, sitting down in Izuku's lap. Suddenly, while driving, the car went over a bump, making Bakugo accidentally jump on Izuku's lap. Bakugo heard Izuku groan in his ear, making him raise a brow and smirk. He started grinding slowly on Izuku's lap, not noticeably but just enough for Izuku to feel it. Izuku hummed, wrapping his arms around Bakuga's waist and leaning forward to press hungry kisses on his neck. Bakuga teasingly stopped moving his hips, not creating any friction between them. Izuku smirked and raised his brow. "So you're gonna tease me, huh? Such a bad boy." He whispered into Bakuga's ear, slithering his hand down to Bakuga's thigh and rubbing it slowly. Bakuga threw his head back onto Izuku's shoulder, trying to stop the little whines coming from his mouth. Izuku knew his thighs were sensitive. The most littlest touch on his thighs felt so tender and good. "So are you guys excited?" Mina exclaimed. Of course, Shiro smiled and glanced at her, Kirishima and Denki agreeing. Midoriya and Bakuga. "Are you excited?" Mina asked innocently. "Yes. I'm really excited to go on the rides." "What about you, Katsuki?" Izuku grinned, sliding his hand up to palm Bakuga's hard pages. "SSHT, Bakuga cursed silently. "You excited?" He squeaked out quickly, biting his lip. "You good Baku babe?" Mina glanced back at them, not seeing what was happening. Perfectly fine raccoon eyes." Mina shrugged. "If you say so." Izuku on Bakuga's neck while rubbing his hand on Bakuga's urchin. Bakuga quietly, shutting his eyes and started grinding on Izuku's lap again. "We're here," Shiro exclaimed, parking the car. Izuku chuckled lowly and took his hands off of Bakuga and opened the car door. "Come on, step out, Katsuki," Izuku spoke. Bakuga took some deep breaths to calm his red face and thumping heart, then stepped out, uncomfortably shifting on his feet. Izuku got out of the car and shut the door. The Baku squad got out of the car as well and started to meet up with everyone else. Izuku grabbed Bakuga's hand and basically dragged him along. "What are you doing?" Bakuga shouted, turning a shade of red. "I'm dragging you with me to go meet up with everyone else," Izuku answered simply. "You can't just do that SHT when we're in the car with people. Idiot." Bakuga's whisper yelled, clutching onto Izuku's hand. "You're the one that started it, so stop whining. And you seem to like it, brat." Izuku glanced at Katsuki, smirking as he turned even more red than before. But Bakuga knew that Izuku only called him a brat when he was either annoyed with him or thought he needed a punishment. So he shut up real quick. Good boy," Izuku hummed as Bakuga stayed silent, blushing at the praise. Bakuga rubbed his thighs together slightly, feeling his pee-pee throb from the teasing in the car and missing the feeling of Izuku's hands on his body. But he dismissed the feeling, finally meeting up with everyone else. "Come on. Let's go," Mina yelled, grabbing Denki's hand and running up to the front booth for wristbands. "2 tickets please." Izuku smiled politely as it was their turn to buy wristbands. The lady slid them their wristbands after Izuku paid for them and put them on. Izuku smiled down at Bakuga, taking his hand back. "Let's go have some fun, Katsuki." "Yeah, whatever. I am not going on that," Bakuga shouted, crossing his arms. Mina pouted. "Please," she pleaded. "Katsuki, please." Izuku whined and joined in. "I said no, you airs." Bakuga didn't budge. Mina sighed, giving up. But Izuku wasn't. Izuku leaned close to Bakuga's ear. "I'll give you a reward," Izuku whispered, his voice husky, sending shivers throughout Bakuga's body. Bakuga looked down. "What? What kind of reward?" he asked nervously, even maybe shyly. "You already know, Katsuki." Izuku softly kissed Bakuga's neck. Fine. Only if you promise." Bakuga huffed and gave in. Izuku leaned back and looked into Bakuga's crimson eyes, and smiled slightly. "I promise, but you have to go on the ride." Bakuga nodded, embarrassed that he fell for the trap. "Let's just get this over with," he grumbled. "Mina. I got Bakuga to come on the ride." Izuku smiled widely at Mina, who was sulking, but perked up as she heard Izuku. "Really? This is going to be awesome." She smiled brightly, the Baku squad beside her waiting in line for the ride with her. "Oh, so, Bakuga muttered, gripping onto the handles of the roller coaster that was climbing far up into the air. Izuku chuckled beside him. "Calm down, it'll be okay." "I am calm. I'm completely fine." Bakuga yelled, trying to convince himself more than Izuku. Izuku sighed and held out his hand, Bakuga immediately gripping onto it. Izuku thought, wincing at the solid grip that Bakuga had on his hand. The roller coaster stopped right at the top, Bakuga closing his eyes tightly so he doesn't see it. "Katsuki." Open your eyes, it's appealing. Izuku exclaimed, awing over the view of the park. Bakugo hesitantly pecked open his eyes and awed over the sight as well before remembering that he was strapped into a roller coaster about to go down. Wait, suddenly the roller coaster dropped, making Bakugo squeeze his eyes shut and hold onto Izuku's hand for dear life. His stomach did backflips, Izuku laughing and smiling as the ride went upside down and around. Bakugo cracked a smile and started laughing too. The funny feeling in his stomach felt like tickling. Bakugo could hear Mina and Denki's screams and laughter. As the ride ending, Izuku and Bakugo were heavily breathing from all the laughing, as well as Mina and Denki. Izuku turned to Bakugo. Wasn't it fun? He smiled teasingly. Bakugo rolled his eyes. Yeah, I guess. They all got out of the ride, Mina running out and running back to them with a picture in hand. Look guys. It's us on the roller coaster, she exclaimed, showing everyone the picture. Mina and Denki were screaming with a smile on their face. Kirishima and Shiro had their hands up on the air, while Bakugo and Izuku were holding hands as Bakugo had his eyes closed and Izuku was laughing. All you guys held hands, Denki pointed out. So cute, Mina squealed. Tisk, Bakugo kissed his teeth, turning his head away from them. I'll give you your reward when we get back, Izuku whispered into Bakugo's ear, Bakugo looking down with pursed lips. You better, he murmured. Izuku smiled slightly as he saw the tips of Bakugo's ears get red. 1410 words. Sorry this chapter is not as good, but I tried. They all went on a couple for rides before wanting to eat. Everyone got their food and sat at a big table and just chatted. Izuku and Bakugo were sitting next to each other as Mina and Kirishima sat across from them. So Bakubro, how long have you and Midoriya been dating? Kirishima asks. For about like 3 years, Bakugo says after swallowing his spicy curry. Kirishima hummed, eyes scanning Bakugo's face, especially his lips. Bakugo didn't notice, but Izuku did. Izuku narrowed his eyes at Kirishima. Anyone could tell he was annoyed. Kirishima caught his gaze and kept eye contact before smiling and looking away. Izuku thought, then glancing at Bakugo who was just eating, not knowing what happened. Anyways, so do you need help with the worksheet that Aizawa gave us? I could help you if you need. Kirishima smiled at Bakugo. You think I'm dumb or some SHT? I already did it. I don't need help. Bakugo rolled his eyes. Come on. I wasn't calling you dumb, Bakugo. What about just hanging out in my dorm? Maybe watch a movie? Kirishima asks, keeping eye contact with Bakugo. He could basically see the gears turning in Bakugo's head. Sure. I don't care. Bakugo just went back to eating. Izuku was fuming to say the least. Bakugo was just letting Kirishima flirt with him as if Izuku wasn't sitting right there. But he kept silent. Everyone was having a good time on the car ride back, shouting to songs and laughing. Sorry guys, but me and Katsuki are going to bed, Izuku smiled, taking Bakugo's hand. Okay bye, Mina smiled and waved, Izuku doing the same. Bakugo's heart rate picked up as they got closer to his dorm. Izuku was silent, gripping onto Bakugo's hand. Izuku opened the door, closing it behind them. Bakugo hesitantly looked up as Izuku lightly stroked his cheek. Abruptly Izuku shoved Bakugo to the wall by his throat, pinning him there. Bakugo's eyes widened as he stared up at Izuku, not uttering a word. Emerald eyes bored into crimson ones. Do you know what you did today? Izuku asked, squeezing Bakugo's throat harder. And no Izuku Bakugo got cut off by Izuku. You call me sir, Izuku demands, trailing his free hand under Bakugo's shirt, tracing his abs. Bakugo breathes out a shaky breath. Sir, I don't know what I did. Izuku chuckled lowly, twisting and pinching Bakugo's nipples as he talked. First, the stunt you pulled in the car. Sir, I'm sorry. Bakugo at the sensation of his nipples being played with. Second, you let Kirishima flirt with you while I was to you. Izuku pulled his hand out of Bakugo's shirt, now just staring into his eyes. Bakugo whined at the loss of pleasure, bucking his hips against Izuku's. Izuku immediately took Bakugo's hips into his hand and pinned it to the wall, his other hand still around Bakugo's throat. Sir, I didn't know, Bakugo meeked out. Sure, I know kitten, but I'm gonna have to punish you, you know that right? Izuku asked, releasing Bakugo's throat and now cupping Bakugo's cheek, stroking his cheekbone with his thumb. Why yes I know, Bakugo looked up into Izuku's eyes. Izuku smirked slightly, and if you be a good boy, I'll give you your reward. Izuku pushed his knee/thigh in between Bakugo's legs. Bakugo nodded quickly. I'll be a good boy. He started grinding on Izuku's thigh, softly at the friction. Izuku pulled away and guided Bakugo to his bed, pushing his down on his back. I know you have a box of things. So where it is? Izuku asked, grinning at Bakugo's flushed face. I in the closet, Bakugo answered. Now strip for me while I get it, Izuku said, getting up, going towards the closet. Bakugo quickly complied, stripping himself of his clothes and laying back down. His pee-pee hard and begging for attention, dripping the tiniest bit of pre-cum. Izuku pulled out a black velvety box, grinning as he found it. He turned around to see Bakugo naked laying on the bed staring at him. Izuku shamelessly raked his eyes over Bakugo's body as he walked back over to the bed and sat on the edge of it. He sat the box down and opened it. Wow, such a slut aren't you, Izuku chuckled. Inside the box were all different kinds of SEC toys. Bakugo could feel his face heat up in embarrassment. He never thought anyone would ever be opening that box instead of himself. Yes, sir, Bakugo answered, hoping to make this punishment less worse by obeying Izuku. Izuku hummed and looked through the box, pulling out multiple items. Izuku climbed closer to Bakugo, sliding a blndfld over his eyes and tying it tight so it won't fall off. What are you going to do, sir? Bakugo asked, getting uneasy that he couldn't see what Izuku would be doing next. It's okay, kitten. I'm just going to tie your hands and feet, is that okay? Izuku asked. He knew this was a punishment, but he didn't want Bakugo to feel unsafe. He saw Bakugo nod. Yes, sir, that's fine. Izuku grabbed the red silk scarves, tying Bakugo's hand to the headboard, one on each post. He did the same with Bakugo's feet so he was spread out and couldn't move. Bakugo tried to calm his rapid heartbeat, but he couldn't. He swore Izuku could probably hear it thumping out of his chest. He flinched slightly as he felt something cold touch his pages. I'm putting on a PP ring, Izuku explained. Bakugo breathed heavily and nodded. As Izuku slid on the PP ring, he felt Bakugo's PP twitch, making him chuckle under his breath. Izuku then grabbed some, putting them on Bakugo's nipples, and one on the tip of his pages. Bakugo knew that they were. It made him excited but scared. He knew this was going to be a punishment. Spread your legs as wide as you can, Izuku says, knowing Bakugo was tied down. Bakugo did as he was told, and at the feeling of Izuku's fingers sliding into his entrance. SSHT, he curses. Izuku pulled out his fingers, leaving a VBR right against Bakugo's PRCT since he knew where it was. What's in me, sir? Bakugo asked, feeling it inside of him, and he knew it wasn't Izuku's fingers. A VBR, Izuku says, now caressing Bakugo's abs and chest, but making sure not to move that are unstrapped onto Bakugo's nipples. Tell me, kitten, if I leave you here for about an hour, could you handle it? Izuku asked, smiling slightly at the sight he made of Bakugo. Under the blndfld, Bakugo's eyebrows raised in surprise. Yes, sir, he answered. He heard Izuku chuckle. Okay, good, now be a good boy while I go downstairs. Wait. You see, can't just leave me here, sir. Bakugo protested. I think I can and I will. Remember, this is a punishment. Izuku says, suddenly turning on all of the at once, making Bakugo gasp. With the abrupt pleasure coursing through him, he didn't notice the Izuku locked the door and left. He squirmed, trying to get out of the restraints, whimpering and at all of the sensory overload on his body. The on his nipples, PP, and PVT was too much to handle already. Bakugo breathed out, bucking his hips into the air. This HTC coming, Bakugo squirmed again, realizing he can't come from the PP ring. He couldn't believe that he already tried to come once and it had only been 10 seconds. This was going to be a long, exhausting night and he knew it. Izuku trotted downstairs with a grin on his face. What's with the face? Mina raised his brow. Oh, nothing. Just excited. Katsuki told me to come down here and wait for an hour since he had a surprise for me. Izuku smiled innocently. Ah, that's cute. You can wait with us if you want. Mina suggested. Yeah, sure. Izuku sat down on the couch with the Baku squad, Uraraka, Todoroki and Ida. Bakugo cried out, tugging and clutching on the red silk scarves. Tears soaked the blndfld that was tied tightly around his head. He could feel his throat hurt from how much whimpering and whining was forced from it. All of them were turned on high, overstimulating every part of Bakuga's body. Sweat trickled down his flushed and quivering body as the pee-pee ring stopped him from coming. He couldn't count how many times he was denied from coming, but he knew he only was able to fully come about 2 times. He froze as he heard a knock at the door. Hello, he shouted in the best normal voice he could muster up. He chalked down the whimpers as he quietly bucked his hips on the air. Hey Baku bro. Just wanted to know if you wanted to come to my dorm to watch a movie. Kirishima's muffled voice came from the door. Bakugu thought. No 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮. Not tonight, Bakugu responded, accidentally letting out a groan. Kirishima raised a brow. Bro, you okay? Let me in. He tried to open the door but it was locked. I'm fine 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙧. Leave me alone. Bakugu heard Kirishima sigh before he heard footsteps dissipate down the hall. Immediately he let out a loud as he assumed Kirishima was gone, trying to close his legs but he couldn't from the scarves. A sob came from his mouth at the feeling of his body being overstimulated. It was on a thin line of pain and pleasure, but honestly he loved it. He loved how he felt weak and dominated, how Izuku tied him down and left him here within and on him. Kirishima came back downstairs, sitting down with everyone in the lounge area. Baku bro doesn't sound like he's putting together a surprise, he says through clenched teeth, making Izuku smirk. So you went up there? Izuku asked. Yeah, he sounded great too. Now it was Kirishima's turn to smirk. Izuku's smirk dropped as clenched his jaw and narrowed his eyes at Kirishima, everyone picking up on the tense atmosphere in the room and quieting down. He does sound great. I'm the one and only one to make him feel like that. Izuku glared at him. And you stayed there and listened. You're disgusting. You could have walked away and respected his privacy but you didn't. Now everyone was silent as they both glared at each other, keeping eye contact until Izuku's phone went off. He looked down at his phone and smirked. Well, it's my time to check up on Katsuki. Bye. Izuku chuckled slightly seeing how Kirishima was fuming. 1866 words. To explain what happened, Kirishima wasn't actually gone and he stayed there and listened to Katsuki. Next chapter will be smut winky face tired face. Bakuga's chest heaved up and down, his breathing hoarse and heavy. His body shivered from all the sensations going on, all of the hitting the right spots. He squirmed, gasping as the VBR rubbed against his overstimulated POE. OFF yes, he breathed out, now rocking his hips so the VBR rubbed against his POE each time. Even if he was sobbing and the pleasure was too much, he wanted more. He couldn't help the longing to feel more, even if it was almost painful. The sound of the door handle clicking made Bakuga's hips still. Izuku. He out, not being able to see because of the tear-soaked BLNDFLD. He heard the chuckle that made his pee-pee throb. Having fun while I was gone are we? Izuku spoke, trailing his hand down Bakuga's abs and down his thighs. Izuku's touch made Bakuga tug on the restraints as he tried to move his body towards Izuku, urging Izuku to touch him. Not yet kitten, Izuku clicked his tongue, reaching up and slowly taking off the BLNDFLD. As he did he raised his brow at how soaked in tears it was. The sight of Bakuga's face was even for Izuku's body to quivering. His eyes were puffy and red from crying, whole face flushed, fresh hot tears slipping down his cheeks. Mouth agape to breathe better. Izuku grinned looking down at him, brushing his fingers through Bakuga's slightly damp hair then caressing his cheek. You learned your lesson, he chuckled, haven't you Katsuki? Bakuga nodded quickly, grunting and as Izuku spoke. He saw Izuku reach into his pocket and pull out a couple remotes. Bakuga's tense body immediately relaxed as Izuku turned off all of the Bakuga closed his eyes as the pleasure slowly faded. His mind felt foggy and blank as he felt Izuku take off all of the restraints then picked him up off the bed. Tha. He mumbled but kept his eyes closed from how tired his body was. Izuku sat down on the floor, spreading his legs so Bakuga sat in between them with his back against Izuku's chest. Izuku grabbed onto Bakuga's jaw, forcing his head upwards. Open your eyes Katsuki, he whispered in his ear. Bakuga sluggishly obeyed, opening his eyes to be meet with his own face. His eyes widened as he realized they were sat in front of his huge body mirror. Bakuga looked at Izuku in the mirror, locking eyes with the toxic green ones that stared back at him in the mirror. "Look at yourself," Izuku demanded, making Bakugo hesitantly look at himself in his mirror. He scanned his F-out face, a few stray tears falling down his flushed cheeks, sweat dribbling down his forehead. He looked like a mess. "Look at how much of a mess you are for me," Izuku cooed in Bakugo's ear, watching in the mirror as Bakugo looked over himself. Bakugo's breath hitched as Izuku softly rubbed both of his pink sensitive nipples. He pushed his body closer to Izuku's, closing his eyes tightly and throwing his head back onto Izuku's shoulder. "Katsuki, I want you to look at yourself while I make you come." "WhatIf yes, make me come?" Bakugo breathed out, lifting his head and keeping eye contact with himself in the mirror like Izuku said. He spread his legs further for Izuku chuckling at the gesture. Izuku trailed one hand down Bakugo's stomach and kept the other one pinching and twisting Bakugo's NPL. He slowly slid off the PP ring, making Bakugo hiss slightly. That feels good?" "I bet it does, Katsuki." Izuku started kissing on Bakugo's neck and biting down a little. Bakugo moved his head to the side, creating more access to his neck. Bakugo still kept eye contact with himself as he felt Izuku's hands slip in between his legs, his fingers circling around his entrance. "Izuku please," Bakugo pleaded, pushing his hips forward. Izuku didn't say anything but complied, slowly pushing in 2 fingers to his second knuckle, grabbing onto the VBRTR that was still in Bakugo and taking it out. He then pushed his 2 fingers back in after he set the VBRTR to the side, purposely rubbing against Bakugo's pyrdie a little. Bakugo's hips buckled up as Bakugo struggled to keep eye contact with himself. This whole time Izuku kept STMLTNG Bakugo's NPL and neck. "Look at how perfect you take my fingers in, Katsuki," he murmured against Bakugo's soft neck, looking up at Bakugo in the mirror. Bakugo looked down in the mirror, watching as Izuku's fingers reached deeper inside his hole with every move. The image made Bakugo clench down on Izuku's fingers, his PP pulsing as he felt himself getting closer. "Im close." Bakugo felt his muscles contract, his body squirming in Izuku's hold. "Good boy. You've been such a good boy, and you learned your lesson. You can come." Izuku looked up from Bakugo's neck, staring intently at Bakugo's face as he slid the hand that was on Bakugo's NPL to Bakugo's pages. He started stroking Bakugo's hard and stiff PP, making Bakugo arch his back off of Izuku's chest. Bakugo squeaked out. His thighs jiggled with every move from Izuku's fingers, his body spasming and twitching as he came. Cum shot out of Bakugo's tip, dripping onto Izuku's hand onto the ground. So gooched, Izuku watched Bakugo's face in the mirror as he came. He could never get over how pretty Bakugo looked when he was filled to the brim with pleasure. Izuku slowly stopped his fingers and hand, riding Bakugo out of his orgasm. Bakugo finally took his eyes off of his entrance that still had Izuku's fingers in it, looking up at Izuku in the mirror who was already looking at him. "You look so pretty when you come, kitten," Izuku smirked. Bakugo flushed even more red when he heard that, embarrassed by it. He was pulled out of his embarrassment and whimpered slightly as Izuku finally pulled his fingers out of his entrance. Bakugo's body slumped up against Izuku's, his breathing still heavy and ragged. He moved slightly to feel more comfortable, but then felt Izuku's hard PP through his. Izuku groaned as Bakugo moved. "Katsuki," he breathed out. Bakugo slowly started to move his hips, ignoring the burning sensation from his butt and thighs. Izuku firmly held onto Bakugo's hips. "Stop, Katsuki. I know you're tired. You need rest. Don't worry about me, I'm fine." Izuku smiled softly at Bakugo. Bakugo did want to continue, but since he was too tired to even respond, he nodded once and closed his eyes. Izuku chuckled under his breath, turning Bakugo around so he faced him. He stood up with Bakugo in his arms, Bakugo immediately wrapping his arms around Izuku and nuzzling his head into Izuku's neck. Izuku threw the dirty bedsheets off the bed with one hand because he was still holding onto Bakugo, and grabbed some new blankets. He laid down on his back with Bakugo's on top of his chest, putting the blankets on both of them. He stroked Bakugo's back soothingly, closing his eyes and falling asleep to Bakugo's soft breathing. 1283 words. I literally don't know what this is. I know it's not the best, but I tried. Woman shrugging 2 hearts anyways. Thank you guys for so many views. It means a lot for people to check out my writing. Izuku woke up first to Bakuga's soft breathing. He looked down and smiled slightly at Bakuga's calm expression before going over the events of last night. He grinned to himself as he came up with an idea. He carefully moved Bakugu off of his chest, lifting the blanket and throwing it off the bed to see Bakugu fully exposed, still naked body. He was still asleep, but shivered from the sudden coldness on his skin. Izuku started kissed down Bakuga's stomach to his V-line, then biting softly on Bakuga's sensitive thigh. Bakugu squirmed slightly in his sleep, but still not fully waking up. Izuku kissed and on his thighs and around his pelvis, making dark marks and love bites. He then took Bakuga's pee-pee into his hand, stroking it slowly to not wake Bakugu. Bakugu softly in his sleep, surprising Izuku. He thought that Bakugu would be awake by now, but that wasn't the case. Bakuga's soft pee-pee got hard from Izuku's stroking, Bakugu squirming in his sleep and groaning. Izuku picked up the pace, spitting on the tip of Bakuga's pee-pee and spreading it up and down as lube. Bakugu groaned, his eyes fluttering open. His face was still a little puffy from sleeping. The mind was still hazy from waking up to this pleasure. He looked down with half-lidded eyes to lock eyes with Izuku. Bakugu shut his eyes and let his head fall back. Faster, he mumbled, weakly bucking his hips up to meet the of Izuku's hand. His body still ached from last night, so when moving his hips a sharp pain hit him. Shoo, relax. Just let me do it all. Izuku spoke with a soft tone, grabbing Bakuga's hip with his free hand. Bakugu listened and stopped his hips, letting his body rest onto the bed while Izuku still stroked him. You like it when you wake up to this, huh? Izuku chuckled as Bakugu and grunted. Why yes. I'm already close, Bakugu breathed out, his muscles tensing. He threw his head back in pleasure as Izuku sped up hearing that. Coming, Bakugu says through clenched teeth. He squirmed slightly and his body twitched as cum shot out of his tip onto his lower stomach and Izuku's hand. Izuku hummed, taking his hand off and grabbing a rag to clean it off of Bakugu and himself. After cleaning up he climbed up and kissed Bakuga's forehead. You did good, kitten. Now get some more rest. Bakugu nodded tiredly, Izuku picking up the blanket and laying it on top of Bakugu so he was warm. Bakugu snuggled into the blanket, already falling back asleep. Izuku got dressed and decided to treat Bakugu today, since last night was his punishment. He silently closed the door and walked down into the kitchen to make some breakfast for Bakugu and himself. While cooking, he hears footsteps walk into the kitchen. He glances over his shoulder to see Kirishima, but doesn't say anything. It was too early for this SHT and he just wanted to have a peaceful day. Hey Midoriya. I wanted to say I'm sorry for invading Bakuga's privacy. I was just jealous, but last night me and Denki got together. I just want to be on okay terms at least since I'm Bakuga's best friend. Kirishima explained nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. Izuku set whatever he was doing down on the counter and turned around. He crossed his arms and leaned backwards against the counter. Yeah, you were a real butt. I understand jealousy makes you do stupid things, but it doesn't excuse it. Anyways, for Katsuki's sake I don't want to be on bad terms. So yeah, I could tolerate you, I guess. Izuku spoke, Kirishima letting out a sigh of relief. But if you ever flirt or do anything remotely NTMT with Katsuki, Kirishima cut him off, I won't. I promise. I have Denki now. Izuku just sighed, turning back to the breakfast he was making. This doesn't mean I like you or forgive you, he says without turning to look at Kirishima. Kirishima frowned a little but sighed, I know, and that was the end of that conversation as he walked away up to his dorm. Bakuga woke up go a cold bed and sat up, realizing Izuku was gone. He just laid back down and decided to wait for him to come back. He thought about what happened this morning and last night, making his heart feel like it was swelling. He shook his head of those thoughts, not wanting to get too flustered. He reached over and grabbed his phone off of the nightstand and just lazily strolled through TikTok while waiting for Izuku to come back. He turned off his phone as he heard the door open and close. He looked over and saw Izuku coming towards him with 2 trays of food. Izuku, did you cook breakfast? Bakugu asked, yawning while sitting up in his bed. He was still naked, but the blanket covered his lower half. Izuku smiled warmly, yeah I did. You deserve it after last night. He chuckled as Bakugo rolled his eyes. Yes, the F I do, now give me the food. Bakugo reached out for the tray. Izuku gave the tray to Bakugo, sitting down on the bed across from him. They both ate and made small talk, until they were down eating. Izuku took the trays and set them on the desk and sat back down, but this time picking Bakugo up and setting Bakugo down in his lap so he was leaning against his chest. Well, this morning while I was making breakfast Kirishima came and talked to me. Izuku sighed. He wasn't going to tell Bakugo about how Kirishima heard him last night. He would be so embarrassed that he wouldn't come out of his room for a month or more. And just overall stop hanging out with Kirishima, and Izuku wasn't going to stop Bakugo from hanging out with his friend. Bakugo glanced behind him with his eyebrow raised. Don't tell me you killed him or something. Bakugo knew about Izuku's disliking for Kirishima, but not really understand the full thing. No, I didn't kill him. He just apologized and said he wanted to be on good terms. So I agreed for your sake since he's your friend. Izuku rolled his eyes thinking about it. Bakugo chuckled under his breath. Well, thanks I guess. I don't want you guys at each other's throats every time we hang out. It's annoying. Izuku didn't respond to that, but wrapped his arms around Bakugo's waist and pulled him closer. He snuggled into Bakugo's soft hair, closing his eyes. Bakugo sighed in content of being in the arms of Izuku. He definitely needed it after last night. He knew it was a punishment, but he needed some affection after that. His whole body still ached, every single inch. But it was worth it. Aizu, can you go get me some painkillers? My body feels shitty. Bakugo groaned. He felt Izuku nod in his spiky hair, carefully removing himself from the bed, trying not to make Bakugo's body ache even more. He'll be back, Katsuki. Izuku smiled and kissed Bakugo, before quickly rushing out the room to get them as quick as possible. Bakugo chuckled at his behavior before attempting to get up. He winced as he felt his ankles throb as he stood, probably from him squirming when his ankles rubbed and pulled against the silk that kept him tied down onto the bed. He sighed and braced himself to walk, and changed into Izuku hoodie and some sweats. Nothing fancy, but very comfortable and cozy. The hoodie smelled of Izuku's cologne and body wash, making Bakugo nuzzle his nose into it. He walked to his bathroom and got ready, fixing up his hair a little, brushing his teeth, and putting on some eyeliner like usual. When he walked back into the room, Izuku was already there, having 2 pills and a glass of water. Here, take these. Izuku handed it to him. Yeah, I know. Bakugo popped the pills in his mouth and drank them down. He sighed and put the glass of water on his nightstand. Come on, let's go downstairs. Izuku stood up, bringing Bakugo with him. Bakugo groaned but didn't complain, walking out of his dorm and downstairs to the lounge where some people were hanging out. Izuku leaned down and kissed Bakugo's cheek. You can go to your friends, Katsuki. I love you. Bakugo tsk, and looked away. I love you too, he muttered. Izuku just chuckled and went over to Todoroki, Ida, and Tokoyami. Bakugo sighed and sat by Mina, but his whole friend group was there though. Mina squealed. You guys are such a cute couple, she shouted. Bakugo curiously looks over and follows her line of sight. His eyes widen, seeing Kirishima holding Denki's hand. You're together, he yelled. Kirishima blushed and scratched the back of his neck with a nervous grin. Yep. And since when did this happen? Why didn't you tell me, shitty hair? Bakugo ranted on. Well, it just happened last night. Kirishima shrugged. Bakugo sighed hard, but then smiled, surprising everyone. Finally you confessed. Dun's face. It was getting annoying when all you talked about was Kirishima this, Kirishima that. Bakugo mocker, smirking at Denki's red face. Mina nodded. True, he talked about you all the time, she says to Kirishima. Guys. Stuff. Denki whined. Kirishima chuckled. I think it's cute, babe. He intertwines their fingers. Stop, you're going to make me explode. Denki felt his face getting even hotter. Anyways, how are you and Midoriya? Mina asked, turning to Bakugo as well as the others. Bakugo smiled slightly. It's going great, actually, he shrugged. Well, who's that girl that all over him? Bakugo whipped his head around so fast Mina thought it was going to fall off. He narrowed his eyes at this random girl he has never seen before talking to Izuku. Izuku didn't seem to notice Bakugo looking over. That's Hana Ito. Akio, Izuku best friend from America, says with an eye roll. Akio has been hanging out with Bakugo and his friends. He really liked hanging with them. Akio looked over to Bakugo, who was staring intently at him, waiting for him to say more. He sighed and continued, ever since the beginning of first year Hana has been pinning after Izuku. She's very subtle with it, so Izuku hasn't noticed it yet. I've tried to tell him, but he just looks at me weird and says, she's nice so I can tolerate her. Bakugo clenched his jaw. Why is there so many people that like Izuku? First Beach and this random Hana. I swear I'll kill all of them. He shouted, and mark appearing on his forehead. It's 'cause he's hot. Mina simply answers, taking a sip of tea Momo made for the girls. Bakugo sighs, I know that, Pinky. Anyways, you don't need to worry though, Akio waved dismissively. Bakugo raised a brow. What do you mean, purple freak? He asked, coming up with the nickname from Akio's purple hair. Akio glared at Bakugo because of the nickname. He loves you. Basically obsessed with you, honestly. Akio sighed. Tsuke, I know that he loves me, purple freak. Bakugo looked away with the tips of his ears red. Please, Hana could never pull Izuku even if he was single, honey. Besides, look at how Izuku is looking at you right now. Mina smirked at Bakugo. Bakugo hesitantly turned around and locked eyes with Izuku, keeping eye contact with his toxic green eyes. Bakugo gulped at the intensity of Izuku's eyes and turned away. Told ya. Mina says, scanning Bakugo's flushed face. Immediately Bakugo's blush went away, his face now painted with a scowl. Shut up. 2041 words. This chapter was long, but I didn't reread it, so there will be a lot of mistakes. Yes, I know this story is cringy, but I can't help it. Loudly crying face Izuku sighed, sitting down in his chair once more. His class was in a different room than Bakugo's, so at lunch and random times in between classes they got to see each other. The bell finally rang, making Izuku perk up. He started packing his bag, while a certain girl came up to him. Oh hey Hana. He greeted, still packing his things. She smiled sweetly. Hey Mito-chan. I make some cookies last night, so I wanted you to try some of them, if that's okay. Izuku smiled slightly. Yeah sure, he agreed, wanting a cookie to give to Bakugo. Hana pulled out a bag of cookies and handed it to Izuku. Anyways, I was wondering if you wanted to sit with me at lunch. She smiled and tilted her head in questioning. Sorry Hana, but I'm sitting with Katsuki. Izuku politely declined. I'll see you later then, she exclaimed, skipping off. Izuku sighed and got up, walking over to the lunchroom. He scanned the lunchroom until his eyes landed on the scowling face of Bakugo, who was arguing about something with Kaminari. Izuku smiled at the sight and walked over, sitting down next to Bakugo. Bakugo looked over and his scowl went away as he saw Izuku. But then he narrowed his eyes at Izuku. Where were you? You were supposed to come to the classroom, so I looked like an idiot standing there waiting for you, you fuckface. He shouted. Izuku lifted his hand and patted Bakugo's head, making Bakugo blush while still glaring. Sorry Katsuki, Hana stopped me and kept me there. But she gave me cookies to share. So here. Izuku explained, then took a cookie from the bag and placed in Bakugo's hand. Bakugo inspected the cookie like it was an alien, then hesitantly took a bite. It was actually pretty good, making him scowl. They're pretty good. Izuku happily ate more cookies. Bakugo furrowed his brows. I bet I could make better ones, he grumbled, but continued to eat the cookie. Izuku chuckled. I bet you could Katsuki. Your katsudon is the best. Actually your cooking is the best. So baking cookies would be easy for you. Izuku's eyes sparkled at the sound of Bakugo's katsudon. I know. I'm the best at cooking, you don't need to tell me. Despite Bakugo's words, he felt a certain level of pride hearing that from Izuku. Izuku knew that Bakugo was very passionate about his cooking skills, so he always made sure to compliment his cooking. I mean, he would anyways since Bakugo's food was like heaven. Izuku passed out Hana's cookies, everyone enjoying the sweet treat. Hey Katsuki, I love you. Izuku suddenly blurts out. Bakugo raised his brow, but you could still see the faint blush on his cheeks. Tsuke, I love you too I guess. Izuku leaned down and kissed Bakugo's forehead, making Bakugo scowl and look away, his blush deepening. Izuku smiled cheekily at his reaction. Aren't they so cute together? Mina says, watching the whole scene play out. Yeah, they really are. Momo agreed, All the girls and boys at the table watching Izuku tease Bakugo as Bakugo got embarrassed and shouted at him, but Izuku's smile never wavered. What are you f***ers staring at, huh? Bakugo sneered, nothing Baku babe. Just watching you two makes me feel so single. Mina wipes a fake tear and puts a hand over her heart. Bakugo rolled his eyes, whatever Pinky. I saw the way you looked at the pink-haired girl that you made out with. He smirked, Mina's face turning a deep red. She pouted and looked away. I don't look at her like anything. She's just kinda cute. She murmured, sure. Bakugo extended the. Mina sighed. Fine, you caught me. I might have a teeny tiny crush on her, she says, putting her thumb and pointer fingers close together to show how small her crush was. Bakugo raised his eyebrows at her, a face of knowing. Mina ignored it. 691 words. Sorry it's short, I'm running out of ideas. If you have any ideas please comment. Bakugo shoved the cookie in Izuku's mouth. Eat it, he demanded, crossing his arms. Izuku nodded and chewed on the cookie, then swallowed. These are so good, Katsuki. Izuku complained, chowing down on another cookie. Bakugo smirked in pride. No. I'm the best cook ever. Izuku nodded in agreement. Bakugo thought, watching as Izuku ate like 6 cookies, you have some on the side of your mouth. Bakugo grinned, standing up on his tippy toes and the chocolate off of the side of Izuku's lips. Izuku tensed under his touch, Bakugo going back down on his feet and staring at Izuku's reaction. Izuku raised his brows. That was hot, he chuckled, resting his hands on Bakugo's hips and leaning down and placing a firm kiss on his lips. You know what? You should give some of my cookies to Hana. Bakugo stated, pulling back out of the kiss. Izuku tilted his head. Why? 'Cause she at baking cookies, Bakugo grumbled. Izuku snorted with laughter. It's okay, Katsuki, I'll give her one. Good. Hana, Izuku called after the girl. Hana stopped in her tracks, turning around with a bright smile. It was in between classes, so they had about 5 minutes till they had to get to class. Mito-chan. It's nice to see you. Did you do something with your hair? Hana asked. Oh, no, not really, just used Katsuki's hair wash. Izuku smiled down at her. Hana pursed her lips. Oh, okay. Well, it works really well. She complimented. Thank you, Hana. Anyways, Katsuki wanted me to give you one of his cookies. Izuku says, digging into his bag to pull out a cookie in a Ziploc bag. He handed it to her. They're really good. Oh, she inspected the cookie. Tell him I said thank you, she forced a smile. Izuku smiled back. Will do. I'll see you around. He waves and walked away, going to find Bakugo. Hana furrowed her brows and looked down at the cookie. He wanted me to taste the cookie because of a different reason, didn't he? She trailed off, talking about Bakugo. I completed my mission on giving Hana the cookie, Izuku declared to Bakugo. Huh. What did bitch face look like while she was eating it? Bakugo shouted/asked, bitch face meaning Hana. Well, I didn't stay around to see her eat it. Izuku smiled nervously and scratched his cheek. Izuku knew that Bakugo has nicknames for everyone, either if they were nice or mean he couldn't stop him from saying them. Bakugo sighed, whatever. Thanks for giving it to her, I guess. He muttered. Of course, Katsuki, Izuku beamed at him. Bakugo reached up and pinched Izuku's cheek. Stop smiling, you're making me go blind, Izuku grinned. Did the Bakugo Katsuki compliment me? He dramatically gasped. Bakugo huffed while dropping his hand back to his side. I did not. You're cute when you deny it. I'm telling you, I didn't compliment you. You're just feeding my addiction to tease you. 534 words. A short chapter. Smiley face. I'm out of ideas for this story, but I'm trying it almost time. Bakugo says, referring to Izuku leaving the next day. As of right now, him and Izuku were cuddling in bed. Izuku hummed, yeah, it is. It was silent, both of them thinking about how hard it will be when Izuku would be gone. Hey, how about we go on a date, Kaken? Bakugo snorted, you rarely call me that anymore. Izuku pouted at the nickname, but then smiled. Seriously though, let's go to the arcade. He said, emphasizing the nickname, Kaken. Bakugo pursed his lips in annoyance. Sounds fantastic, he smirked. Great, Kaken. We can go later today since it's only 11 a.m. Izuku says, glancing over at the clock on the nightstand. Fine. Just let me nap. Bakugo huffed, shuffling around to get in a comfortable position while still cuddling Izuku. He basically ended up with half of his body draped over Izuku's body. Now shut up and be a good pillow. Izuku sighed while smiling, relaxing into the bed and started massaging Bakugo's head. Soon enough both of them fell asleep. Bakugo grumbled as he woke up, yawning and rubbing his eyes. He looked up and saw Izuku still peacefully sleeping. Oi, Izuku didn't wake up. Bakugo reached up a bit and slapped him. Did you really have to slap me? Izuku finally woke up from the hard slap, his voice raspy from sleeping. Yes, I did. You weren't waking up. Bakugo reluctantly got off the bed and started to get dressed for the date. I don't believe that for a second. Whatever, nerd, Bakugo grinned. Just hurry up and get ready. I don't want the extras catching us on the way out. Both Izuku and Bakugo quietly closed the dorm door, holding hands as they walked as quickly and quietly as possible down the hall to the stairs. As they got to the bottom of the stairs, Bakugo checked around the corner and saw no one, deeming it clear. Okay, it's clear. Bakugo whispered, creeping out into the common room, Izuku by his side. Where are you guys going? Bakugo squealed, turning around quickly to see Mina, Denki, 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮, Kirishima, and Todoroki. PFTT, Bakugo. Did you just squeal like a girl? Denki laughed out. Bakugo pursed his lips and crossed his arms, an embarrassment blush crawling on his cheeks. Shut up, dunce face. You didn't hear anything. Denki was laughing so hard, as well as Mina. Todoroki cracked a small smile while 𝙎𝙪𝙢 and Kirishima were trying hard not to laugh. Izuku snorted, then cleared his throat as Bakugo threw a death glare at him. Gee guys. Izuku took a breath to calm down his laughing. Come on, stop laughing. Or else we won't tell you where we're going. Mina immediately shut up, the rest of them calming down from their laughing spree. Izuku sighed. Finally. F extras, Bakugo muttered. So, where are you guys going? Can we come? Mina did her best puppy eyes, holding her hands like she is praying. Izuku looked at Bakugo sighing while shaking his head. Fine. You can come, but this was supposed to be AF date, so shut your SHT mouths and follow us. Bakugo shouted, taking Izuku's hand and dragging him out the door. Everyone else followed like a lost puppies behind them. You never told us where we are going, Bakugo, Todoroki points out calmly. Yeah, Mina yelled. Bakugo glanced over his shoulder. We're going to the arcade. 603 words. Sorry I haven't been posting as often. I just started school. Sad face. Sorry that it's short as well. They all walked to the arcade, Izuku and Katsuki in the front of the group holding hands. Mina gasped. We're here, she yelled in a singing voice. Everyone looked up and saw the arcade, the games through the windows lighting up with appealing colors. You guys can all go around and play some games. Me and Katsuki will pay for everyone. Izuku smiled politely. It's fine, I'll pay, Todoroki spoke up, holding up a card. Todoroki. Izuku tried to decline. It's not even my money, it's my father's credit card. Izuku raised a brow. Okay then, he shrugged, knowing that Todoroki's dad was in but. Who cares if they spent his money? Todoroki nods, getting in line to pay. Let's go play. Izuku dragged Katsuki away, and he just let it happen. This one nerd. Katsuki stopped in his tracks, yanking Izuku to stop with him. Katsuki pointed to a zombie VR game. Izuku smiled, nodding. Yeah, that looks fun. They both went over, pulling the VR headset on and picking up the fake guns. The voiceover guy was loud, as well as the sounds of the gunshots and zombies groaning. Come on, Deku. You can do better than that. Katsuki shouted over the music and sound effects. Eventually they both died from the zombies, laughing as they took their headsets off and setting the fake guns down. As they both turned to each other and realized how close they were. Izuku smiled lightly and looking down at Katsuki's pink, slightly parted lips. They were close enough that they could somewhat feel each other's slow breath fanning on each other's faces. Katsuki could feel his heart squeeze as Izuku looked down at his lips. No matter how many times they kissed, Katsuki couldn't get the feeling of nervousness out of his stomach. He brushed it aside though, standing up on his tippy toes and reaching up to the nape of Izuku's neck. Katsuki pushed Izuku's head down, locking their lips together firmly as his hand slid up into Izuku's hair instead. Izuku grunted quietly into the kiss as Katsuki tugged on his hair, setting his hands on Katsuki's hips and pushing him forward so their bodices were against each other. Mommy, let's go on the zombie one. Honey, let's pick a different one, okay? We shouldn't bother them. Katsuki and Izuku quickly pulled out of the kiss, stepping away from each other as they heard the mother and son's conversation. I'm sorry, Izuku tried to apologize, the mother cutting him off. It's okay, dear. You're a lovely couple. She smiled, holding her hand, son. Izuku smiled back, thank you, ma'am. Oh, let's go to this one, mommy. The son shouted, tugging on his mother's hand. The mother let her son drag her to a different game. That was embarrassing, Katsuki grumbled, an embarrassed blush on his cheeks. Izuku laughed, it was, but the woman was nice about it. Katsuki sighed and nodded in agreement. Izuku nudged Katsuki with his elbow. You did great on the game though, babe. Katsuki scoffed. Yeah, I know. I did great and you did horrible, Izuku pouted. Hey. I tried. Bakubro, someone called out. Izuku and Katsuki turned around to see Kirishima, Denki, and Mina at dance revaluation waving for them to come over. Katsuki grabbed Izuku's hand. Let's go show these extras how to play, he smirked, dragging Izuku behind him. Bakugu. I bet you can't beat me. Mina grinned, already on one side of the arrows. Huh. Of course I can beat you. Katsuki stepped on the set of other arrows. I told you, I could beat you, Katsuki huffed between words trying to breathe, leaning on the bar behind him. Sweat trailed down his cheek and forehead and he was all red. Mina looked the same, breathing heavily and all pink in the face. Since no quirks minus skin isn't pink, wow. That was intense, Kirishima exclaimed, his arm wrapped around Denki's waist. Kat, you're all sweaty, Izuku walked up to Katsuki, taking his hand. We'll be right back. I'm gonna freshen him up. Izuku waved, leading Katsuki to the bathroom. I can clean myself up, idiot. I'm not AF baby. Katsuki shouted. Mina, Kirishima and Denki watched as Katsuki shouted insults and cuss words at Izuku, who just laughed and continued dragging him towards the restroom. They all looked at each other silently and then nodded. Yeah, they aren't only going to be cleaning up in that bathroom. 776 words. Sorry, it's another short chapter. School is kicking my butt. LMAO, maybe some smut in next chapter. Winky face comment if you want smut. Katsuki crossed his arms as Izuku finally let go of his hand. They were alone in the bathroom, which was fairly clean. Very weird for an bathroom. Why'd you have to drag me, you effer? Katsuki huffed, rubbing his wrist that Izuku had a tight grip on. Izuku shrugged. You were gonna be too slow. You know I could have cleaned myself up, Katsuki pointed out, watching intently as Izuku stepped up in front of him. Izuku pouted, swiftly grabbing Katsuki's hips and pulling him closer. On instinct, Katsuki threw his hands up onto Izuku's chest, biting the inside of his cheek as he did. Yeah, but I wanted to come with you. Izuku's hands trailed down to Katsuki's butt, squeezing it firmly. Katsuki hummed, tracing shapes on Izuku's chest with his finger. I really want you to help me. Izuku bent down a little and pressed soft, open-mouth kisses on Katsuki's neck and brushed his fingertips up the side of Katsuki's thigh, knowing he liked it and it was a turn-on. And you want me to help you how, Katsuki? Katsuki sighed softly at the feeling, running his hands up Izuku's chest to his shoulders, and then down to his biceps. You already know what I want. He squeezed lightly on Izuku's biceps. Do I know though? Izuku teased and leaned up so he could see Katsuki's face. Yes you do, Katsuki breathed out, both of them leaning closer to each other, their lips brushing up one another's. Katsuki ran his hand through Izuku's hair, his other hand resting at the nape of Izuku's neck. You're gonna have to show me what you want. Katsuki raised a brow at that. Fine, I will. He quickly smashed their lips together, both of them opening their mouths as their tongues collided into a sloppy makeout. Spit dripped out of the side of Katsuki's mouth, trailing down all the way to his neck. Izuku was grunting and groaning into the kiss as Katsuki was into the stall. Katsuki spoke fast in between the fast and sloppy kisses. Izuku complied, their lips never unlocking as they went into the big stall at the end. It was quick, their clothes being discarded left and right until they were both left in their boxers, their clothes scattered all around the stall. Just saying, you can't see the bottom of the stall floors, so it's convenient for the story that you can't see into a stall at all. Izuku started kissing down Katsuki's jaw and down his neck. He started and biting, making dark marks all along Katsuki's neck. Katsuki was breathing heavily, as well as Izuku from barely breathing from the sloppy makeout. He was still though, even if it took his breath away at the moment. Izuku astride up Katsuki's neck and back to his lips. Katsuki stood up high, now kissing Izuku's neck instead. He pressed little kisses all down Izuku's neck and chest, then stuck his tongue out, down Izuku's abs. SHT, that feels good, Izuku shuddered. As Katsuki got lower, he got on his knees, now in front of Izuku's boxers. Izuku reached out and took a handful of Katsuki's hair, yanking his head up so they could look at each other. Be a good slot and put those pretty little lips to use. Katsuki nodded as best he could with his hair being pulled. His pee-pee was throbbing, but he wanted to give Izuku pleasure first. I don't hear you, Katsuki. Izuku teasingly said, getting a tighter grip on his hair. Katsuki hissed slightly at the pain. Yes, I will. You will what? Katsuki squeezed his eyes tight. Don't make me say it. Open your eyes and say it, Izuku says patiently. Katsuki peeled his eyes open, forcing himself to look Izuku in the eye. I will put my pretty little lips to use. Izuku grinned, looking down at Katsuki, roughly letting go of his hair. Good. Katsuki hurriedly stripped off Izuku's boxers, his hard pee-pee thick and red, especially the tip. Katsuki gently ran his fingertips on the side of Izuku's pee-pee, then wrapped his hand around the base and slowly started pumping him. Izuku groaned at the wanted friction, closing his eyes at the sensation. Opening his mouth, Katsuki put his lips around the tip only, swishing his tongue around it while still pumping the rest of Izuku's pages. Your mouth is so perfect, always so warm and wet. Izuku breathlessly, watching as Katsuki took more in his mouth. Izuku grabbed the back of Katsuki's head, pushing him down at a faster pace. He then balled up his fist so he had a good grip of Katsuki's hair, roughly shoving the rest of his pee-pee inside of Katsuki's mouth, causing him to GG. Katsuki held onto Izuku's thighs to ground himself as he felt the tip brush the back of his throat. He hollowed out his cheeks and running his tongue all over Izuku's pages. His jaw hurt from having to force it open, so he didn't bite Izuku, but he did. Sloshing sounds filled the bathroom as Izuku his pee-pee into Katsuki's mouth, basically face F him. The sounds of Katsuki choking made Izuku go faster. The sounds made him turned on even more. Katsuki struggled to breathe through his nose, clutching onto Izuku's thighs harder so his nails dug into his skin. He kept his gaze up on Izuku as tears gathered up in his eyes. Such a good boy. Taking my pee-pee down your throat so well. Izuku spoke between his. He kept feeling Katsuki's throat close in every time he brushed the back of his throat. Katsuki, touch yourself. Katsuki quickly obeyed, shuffling to get his boxers off while still Izuku into his mouth. Himself off fast, around Izuku's pages. Yeah. Are you gonna come, baby? Are you gonna come? Izuku says while grunting and threw his head back onto the bathroom wall. He looked back down, his hips aching from to see Katsuki struggling to breathe. That doesn't keep him from stopping, only speeds him up. Katsuki, his toes curling tightly as he came on his hand and on the bathroom floor. Izuku managed to get out a chuckle, choking on my pee-pee when you come. Katsuki went back to holding onto Izuku's thighs, his drool dripping down his chin, his watery eyes looking up at Izuku. Izuku's hips abruptly stopped as he heard the bathroom door open, pulling his pee-pee out of Katsuki's mouth. Katsuki's eyes widened, finally being able to breathe and close his aching jaw. They both stayed silent, as they heard a couple people walk in. I thought maybe Bakugo and Midoriya would be in here. They recognized the voice as Todoroki. That is weird. They said they were going to the bathroom. Maybe they just went back to the dorms. Mina exclaimed. Izuku cursed under his breath. He was so close. Izuku tapped Katsuki's cheek, Katsuki looking up at him heavily breathing. Open, he whispered. Katsuki bit his lip, but obeyed and opened his mouth as wide as it could. Izuku smirked, pushing his pee-pee back inside of Katsuki's mouth as their friends were having a conversation on the other side of the stall door. Izuku set the pace of his hips faster, wanting to reach his high. F. He quietly hissed, throwing his head back and running his hand through Katsuki's spiky hair. I haven't actually seen them in the arcade, 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙧 said thinking, Kaminari agreeing. Kirishima sighed. I think they went back to the dorms to have some privacy, if you know what I mean. Izuku felt himself getting closer, his into Katsuki's mouth getting sloppier. His muscles contracted a bit, Katsuki feeling it on Izuku's thighs. Katsuki's knew he was close, so he harder and swirled his tongue faster. Mina laughed, true. Let's just go play some games, then we can go see them back at the dorms. They all trickled out of the bathroom, and when the door closed, Izuku immediately let his mouth open to let out a throaty I'm close. You want my cum down your throat, don't you? Izuku groaned. Katsuki nodded quickly as best as he could. Coming. Izuku kept his pee-pee shoved down Katsuki's throat as hot and salty cum filled Katsuki's mouth and throat. Izuku let go of Katsuki's hair, letting him cough and spit out his cum in the toilet. Both of them breathing heavily. Katsuki stood with hurting knees and trotted over to Izuku. Stupid, he muttered, leaning his head against Izuku's chest. Izuku chuckled, wrapping his arms around Katsuki. They both just held each other, exhausted and ready to get out of the arcade bathroom. 1527 words? I didn't reread it. Winky face. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed the smut like I did. I wrote this all in one go and don't know if it doesn't make sense or not, but woman shrugging. Thank you for reading this chapter. Izuku and Katsuki gathered their clothes and got dressed, going out to the arcade as fast as possible. As they got to the dorms, they snuck past everyone and into Katsuki's dorm to shower. Finally, Katsuki sighed in relief, getting in the shower. Izuku stepped in as well, and he washed Katsuki's hair. You're leaving tomorrow. Katsuki finally brought it up, sitting in between Izuku's legs, his back on Izuku's chest as Izuku was leaning against the headboard. Izuku sighed, wrapping his arms around Katsuki's waist. I know. But I promise to come down as soon as I can. But that's gonna take forever, Katsuki whined. I know, Izuku sighed, but once we finish school, we can move in together, just like we've always wanted. You're gonna move here, right? Because if you're not, I'm dragging your butt over here. Katsuki scoffed slightly, Izuku laughing. Of course I am. I wouldn't force you to come to America. Besides, Japan is way better. Was comfortable silence for a few seconds. Have you watched the Squid Game? Izuku asked. No, but I heard about it. Let's watch it together, Izuku exclaimed, reaching over and grabbing the remote to turn the TV on. Whatever, it's probably gonna be SHT anyways. Come on, Katsuki. Don't be like that. It might be really good. Exclamation mark. What? Who in their right minds would have a sissy in there? Katsuki shouted at the TV. I mean, we had issy in the bathroom before. Katsuki faintly blushed and scowled. Not the same thing. Izuku laughed but nodded. Yeah, and why would you have issy with an arrogant piece of SHT? I do that all the time, Katsuki snickered. Izuku slapped him on the back of the head. Not funny, but that beach. He's tricking Ollie. Katsuki flipped the screen off when Sangwoo came on screen. Oh, SHT, now the old man is gonna die. I like the old man. Izuku pouted, watching Ji-hun and the man play the marbles game. Okay, but you got to admit the detective and 067 are hot, Katsuki said. Izuku nodded. Both Izuku's and Katsuki's jaw dropped as 240 just dropped the marble, losing the game. They watched as 067 looked at her in shock and sadness. Kong si bayak. 240 called out, 067 stopping in her tracks. Thanks, 240 tried to keep a smile on her face, tears running down her cheeks. Thanks, for being my partner. A gunshot was heard, then a thump on the ground. Izuku looked over at Katsuki, hearing a sniffle. Katsuki, are you crying? Katsuki immediately rubbed his face aggressively, getting all the tears off of his cheeks. No, I'm not. I refuse to cry. He blinked rapidly to try and stop the tears from falling. Oh, it's okay, Katsuki. Izuku giggled before wrapping his arms around Katsuki and bringing him closer so they cuddled. Katsuki tried to shove him away. Shut up. Go die. Okay. It was good, Katsuki admitted, sighed and rubbing his puffy and tired eyes. Too much crying in one day, so you did cry. Izuku smirked, huh? No, I didn't. Katsuki realized what he said. Izuku rolled his eyes. Sure, he dragged out the whatever. Suddenly, someone knocked on their door. Izuku got up and opened it, seeing Mina. Hey Midoriya. Since you and your classmates are leaving tomorrow, we wanted to have a party tonight, kind of like a dance. We got permission from Aizawa to go to this golf course that has a little venue. She explained excitedly, smiling. Izuku smiled back. That sounds fun. Me and Katsuki will definitely go. What time do we need to be downstairs and ready? Around 8, Izuku nodded. Okay. We'll be downstairs at 8. See you then. Mina nodded and skipped off. Izuku closed the door and turned to Katsuki. Did you hear all of it? Katsuki scoffed. Yeah. And it's just gonna be lame. He grumbled. Ah, come on, don't be like that. They are throwing us a party because I'm leaving tomorrow. Izuku climbed back into bed, cuddling Katsuki. Fine. But what about the shitty outfits? Do you have a suit with you? Katsuki asked, running his fingers through Izuku's soft hair. Izuku hummed at the feeling. I do. Katsuki picked his phone up with his free hand. The time was already 7. Oi, it's already 7. We need to get ready. He shoved Izuku off of him onto the floor, springing up and running up to his closet. Izuku groaned. Ow, he whined, spread out of the floor. Stop being a baby and go get dressed. Come back here before 8. Katsuki said, rummaging through his clothes. Yes, sir. Izuku jumped up and marched out the room. Katsuki smiled while rolling his eyes at his behavior. When they are all ready, Katsuki just finished putting his suit on, now putting on touches to his hair and eyeliner. He looked in his body mirror, smirking slightly at how he looked. He did look very good in a suit. Not my art, I found it on Google, and I know this photo is used in a lot of other fanfics, but he looks so good. Loudly crying face. Katsuki flinched slightly as a knock on his door was heard. He hadn't seen Izuku in a suit in a while, so he was excited to say the least. Katsuki opened the door, Izuku and him staring at each other. DMN. You look so good, Katsuki. Izuku smiled, looking him up and down. Teach, I haven't seen you in a suit in a while. You should wear a suit more often. Katsuki did the same, looking Izuku up and down. It was hard not to. Not my art, I found it on Google. I guess this is good. I don't know. Loudly crying face. He looks hot to me. Smiley face. Izuku held his hand out. Would you mind to come with me to this dance? Katsuki pursed his lips so he didn't laugh at the voice Izuku was making. I wouldn't mind at all. He put his hand in Izuku's. Let's go. Izuku pulled Katsuki out of his room, closing the door behind him. Okay, Katsuki chuckled, intertwining their hands. As they walked downstairs, they saw a bunch of people. I thought it was just us and your class. Katsuki asked. Izuku shrugged, thinking the same thing as Katsuki. Oh, they're here. They heard behind them. Turning around, they saw all of Class 1A and Aiko. Izuku smiled and walked over to them, dragging Katsuki over in the process. Hey guys. You all look amazing. Thank you, Midoriya. You look great in a suit, you too, Bakugo. I've never seen you wear this suit. Mina spoke. You could hear the excitement in her voice. Thief, thanks Raccoon Eyes. But why are there so many people here? Katsuki asked. Well, I guess a lot of people invited their friends, and their friends invited their friends. Katsuki cut Mina off. Okay. I get it. Anyways, we will be leaving in a little. Mina smiled. So right now we are just hanging out waiting for Aizawa to give us the okay? Katsuki nodded in understanding. Midoriya. Izuku turned slightly to Ida, Todoroki, Aiko, Sato, and Hisu. Hey guys, Izuku smiled at them. You look really good, Midoriya, Todoroki complimented. Thank you. You do too, Todoroki. Izuku grinned. Todoroki was wearing a red and white suit, to go with his hair of course. Ida was wearing a dark blue suit, Sue wearing a light green flowy dress that fit her perfectly. Aiko was wearing a pink suit, of course he was. It wasn't a surprise since he always did extra. Last but not least, Sato was wearing a yellow suit. So, is there gonna be food? I'm starving. Izuku whined. Of course, Midoriya. I baked some cake for dessert and some other food. Sato boasted. Izuku practically has stars in his eyes. Wah. I can't wait. Your food is so good, 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮. I'm glad you like it, 𝙎𝙪𝙢 smiled. Come on, Mina shouted, pulling Katsuki away into the Baku squad group. Bakugu, looking great, Denki made a thumbs up. You too, dunce face, Katsuki nodded. Denki had a yellow suit on like 𝙎𝙪𝙢, but a different shade of yellow. And of course Kirishima had a red suit on. 𝙎𝙪𝙢 has a purple suit on, and Momo, her girlfriend, has a purple dress on to match. Siro was holding hands with the guy he kissed when Spin the Bottle happened, Mina holding hands with the girl she kissed in the same scenario. You guys are dating? Katsuki smirked and asked, looking between Mina and the pink-haired girl. Mina huffed while blushing, yeah, we are. Teeth, finally. I don't want to have to put up with your rants about how lonely you are. Katsuki teased. The pink-haired girl giggled. I've heard a lot about you, Bakugu. My name is Sakura. She introduced herself, smiling brightly. I'm glad Pinky has found someone like you. Thank you, Bakugu, Katsuki nodded. Alrighty, an obnoxious loud voice rang out through the commons room, everyone shutting up and turning to look at the person. And of course, it was Hisashi. Shut up. Anyways, you can all leave now. Just be careful and come back in one piece. Aizawa popped out of nowhere, his signature tired voice speaking out. Everyone then cheered and started making their way out of the dorms. When they get to the venue, Katsuki and Izuku held hands while walking up to the venue. To their right was a little house that had 5 tables inside and bathrooms. On the tables were several different foods and sweets. Walking past the little house, they came to a stop and looked around. Colored flashing lights were everywhere, people dancing to the music that was blasting from the speakers in the front. This is all outside BTW. It was slightly chilly, which was good since they would definitely get hot once they started dancing. Oh, I've never actually been to a dance before. Katsuki admitted nervously with an embarrassed blush on his cheeks. Really? I would have thought Mina would drag you out of your room for you to come to one of these. Izuku looked at Katsuki, his eyes slightly wide in somewhat shock. Katsuki shrugged. I always just told them to F off or I'll kill them, Izuku sighed, knowing that that's what Katsuki would do. Well, let's go then. Izuku smiled widely and started to drag Katsuki to where all the people were dancing, jumping, and grinding. Katsuki shook his head rapidly. No, no, no. He tried to tug his hand away, but it was in vain. Izuku shoved his way into the middle, people bumping into both of them while they were jumping and dancing. Izuku grinned and put his hands on Katsuki's hips. Come on. This. Izuku yelled over the loud music. Katsuki pursed his lips but slowly started to move his hips to the music. He put his hands on Izuku's shoulders, getting closer while swaying his hips. Izuku smirked while he did this. Katsuki turned around so his back was to Izuku's chest, so he was grinding his butt on Izuku. Izuku didn't mind, he was loving it. He placed his hands on Katsuki's waist this time. It was crowded, people all around them. Loud music was playing from the speakers, people chatting away or yelling over the music to talk. It was dark out already. The only light they had was the light from the small house and the flashing colored lights where the speakers were. Abruptly the upbeat song stopped, a slow one playing. Katsuki turned around and put his arms to hang loosely around Izuku's neck, Izuku's hands still on his waist. The song played, a nice humming playing first. They stared into each other's eyes as they swayed back and forth, just holding on to each other. Katsuki started softly singing along to the song, smiling slightly. Izuku gazed lovingly at Katsuki. Katsuki sang quietly for only Izuku to hear, closing his eyes and stepping closer to Izuku. Katsuki turned his head and placed his cheek on Izuku's chest, hearing his soothing heartbeat. He now had his arms wrapped around Izuku's waist. Izuku sighed through his nose, closing his eyes as well and setting his chin on Katsuki's soft but somewhat spiky hair. They swayed back and forth still, tightening their grips on each other. Katsuki leaned his head back, Izuku doing the same so they could look into each other's eyes. Katsuki smiled lovingly, he sang again, staring into Izuku's emerald eyes. Mina sniffled, look at how they look at each other. They love each other so much. Sakura giggled and held onto Mina's shoulders tighter, pushing them together more. Mina turned her head to her, smiling. That's gonna be us. Guys doing anything today? Mina wiggled her eyebrows at them. Katsuki rolled his eyes. We are going hiking, I guess. Mina mouth formed an "oh" while looking at Izuku. Shut it, Mina. Izuku said, "Oh, okay." She grinned. Katsuki glanced between them, not understanding what is going on. You guys in keeping secrets from me now. What is it? Nothing you need to know, Pom-Pom. I swear to God, Mina, if you call me that one more time, I'll bury you alive in the backyard. Katsuki glared at Mina. It was silent. Pom-Pom. She giggled and ran out the kitchen. Katsuki groaned and tried to wiggle out of Izuku's grip, but failed. Let me go, you effer. No, anyways, we are going to go get ready for the date. Bye. Izuku wrapped his arms around Katsuki's waist and picked him up, forcing Katsuki to lock his legs onto Izuku's hips. I hate you. Katsuki muttered, so you don't want to go hiking. That's what I thought. You ready? Izuku knocked on Katsuki's door, dressed for the hike. It was about 1 p.m. and it was nice and sunny, perfect for a hike. Katsuki opened the door. I'm ready. Now hurry up, let's go. He practically dragged Izuku downstairs. Do you want to hurry because you're excited or want to get this over with? Izuku laughed. Tease both. Katsuki grumbled. All right, bye guys. We will be back. Izuku waved to the people in the commons room. Bring him back by 4. Mina yelled. Izuku smiled. They'll have him back by 3 milliseconds. Ashido, he played along. Good. Now go have fun. She pushed them out the door. Katsuki sighed. I love her. Not as much as you love though, right? Izuku grabbed Katsuki's hand and intertwined them together, guiding them to where they were going to hike. PFD, keep dreaming, idiot. Katsuki snickered, holding Izuku's hand back. I know you love me. Debatable. This is it. Izuku gestured to the medium-sized mountain. Okay, I guess. Katsuki nodded. Izuku mentally cheered in his head for getting approval from the hiking god. Let's go. Izuku exclaimed, starting to walk on the trail. As they walked up the trail, there was some other people passing by, as well as some things you had to climb. Izuku now was laughing his butt off because Katsuki got so scared by a cute little bunny. Shut up, but it sounded bigger. Katsuki yelled at Izuku. Sorry. Izuku finally calmed down. Actually, we are almost at the top. Izuku took Katsuki's hand, guiding him through the trail. About 5 minutes later, Izuku stopped. Katsuki came around Izuku, his eyes widening at the appealing view of the city, as well as a picnic at the top. Dumbass. When did you do this? Katsuki walked over to the picnic and sat down on the blanket, Izuku following. I woke up super early in the morning and did it. Izuku smiled warmly. Katsuki blinked. Wait, so you already hiked this just to put this picnic up here? Yep. Tisich, you always got to do the most. Katsuki scoffed, acting like he wasn't happy about the surprise. Come on, let's eat. Izuku took off his backpack and pulled out some random but delicious food. They sat and ate, watching over the appealing city while enjoying each other's company, knowing that it would be a while when they would see each other again. Soon the clouds started turning gray and it started to rain. Not too much, but as they sat there they got drenched. Katsuki shouted as it was pouring now. Hell, it was sunny like 10 minutes ago. Izuku yelled. They huddled closer together, but despite their words they both loved the rain. Now Katsuki rested his head on Izuku's shoulder while Izuku rested his on Katsuki's head, rain dripping everywhere off of them. This is the worst. Katsuki bitterly laughed, referring to Izuku leaving tonight and not the rain. Izuku sighed, pulling him closer. I know, I'm not gonna be able to touch you. He slid his arm around Katsuki's waist. You know we can call all the time. Katsuki said, it's not the same though, Katsuki, and you know that. Izuku turned his head and leaned down, pressing small but loving kisses on Katsuki's neck. Katsuki hummed at the affection, turning completely so he could take Izuku's face in his hands. You know I really love you. He muttered, the rain now soaking his hair completely, and I really love you too. Izuku smiled lovingly, leaning closer. You're so cliché. Katsuki laughed, knowing that Izuku wanted a kiss in the rain. You know you love it. Izuku grinned. They met in the middle, kissing in the rain. They savored the feeling of each other's lips on their own, knowing they wouldn't feel it in a while once Izuku leaves. Finally, pulling out of the long intense kiss, Izuku breathed out. We should head back before Mina tracks us down. Katsuki laughed. Yeah, let's go. Where were you? Mina yelled, jumping up from the couch and running over to the drenched boys. We stayed at the picnic, remember? Izuku said, laughing slightly at Mina's concerned/worried but angry face. Oh right. But that doesn't mean you stay out in the rain. You're going to get a cold. Mina scolded, putting her hands on the side of Katsuki's face and gasping, "You're so cold. Idiot. Go get cleaned up." Okay. God damn it, woman. Katsuki shouted, stomping upstairs to his room. Izuku chuckled at him, then turned to Mina. Thanks for helping me set up the picnic this morning, it means a lot. Of course. Anything for Bakugo to be happy. Mina smiled, now go treat your man. Izuku knocked on Katsuki's door. Hearing it come in, he opened the door and closed it behind him, a grin forming at his lips at the sight of Katsuki getting undressed. Katsuki glanced back at him. Stop, look at me like that and hurry up so we can shower. Izuku nodded and started undressing as well. When they were both naked they got in the shower, having the water hot so it warmed them up nicely. I meant what I said, it's not gonna be the same without touching you. Izuku said over the sound of the shower, snaking his arm around Katsuki's waist and pulling him in so Katsuki was flush against his chest. Katsuki felt his heart pick up and his breathing fasten. I'm gonna miss your touch, he whispered, turning around and looking up so their faces were inches apart. Are you? Izuku smirked, his hand trailing down to Katsuki's hip, then to his pages he teased him, slowly pacing his Izuku. Katsuki breathed out and rested his forehead on Izuku's chest. Tell me how much you're gonna miss me. Izuku demanded, swiping his thumb across Katsuki's tip. So much. I'm gonna miss you so much. Katsuki whimpered, Izuku now just teasing his thighs and lower stomach, coming close to touching his pee-pee but never actually giving Katsuki that satisfaction. Stop teasing. Katsuki groaned, God, you can't even wait, you little slut. With his free hand, Izuku grabbed Katsuki's jaw, forcing him to look up. Katsuki had his eyes squeezed shut though. Open those pretty eyes, Katsuki. Izuku said, gripping Katsuki's jaw slightly tighter. Immediately Katsuki opened his eyes, meeting Izuku's. Both of them leaned forward, colliding their lips in a desperate kiss. Izuku was now quickly stroking Katsuki, putting different pressures sometimes and teasing his tip. Katsuki struggled to kiss back from the rapidly building pleasure, his knees slightly buckling. He reached up and clutched onto Izuku's biceps, needing something to ground himself. Izuku leaned back out of the kiss and chuckled as Katsuki immediately spewed and whimpers from his slightly parted mouth. His legs shaking under him. Already shaking. Such a good slot and you're all mine, aren't you? Izuku praised, letting go of Katsuki's jaw. He used that now free hand to twist and pinch Katsuki's NPL. Yes. Only yours, Izuku. Katsuki whined, moving his hips with the pace of Izuku's. So good. Gonna come. Already? Fine, then be a good boy and come. Katsuki's body felt hot, bliss flowing through his veins as he was coming close to his orgasm. His legs quivered below him, his face described pure joy as he came in thick spurts onto Izuku's hand and the shower floor. Izuku slowed down so Katsuki could ride out his orgasm. Katsuki was breathing heavily, basking in the pure bliss he just experienced. The shower already washed away all of the evidence of what just happened. Izuku now completely stopped. Are you okay, Katsuki? He asked, cupping Katsuki's cheek with his clean hand and tilting his head up. Katsuki smiled slightly. Yeah? Good, now let's get cleaned up and go downstairs. Katsuki always loved Izuku's aftercare. He always felt so loved and cherished as Izuku carefully rubbed and massaged all along his body with the help of soap. After Izuku cleaned Katsuki up lovingly and getting dressed, they both came downstairs. Katsuki sighed and sat on the couch, Izuku sitting right next to him. Everyone was sat around the commons room, watching Denki, Kirishima, Todoroki, Shiro and Jairu play Mario Kart. Suddenly Katsuki felt blankets being thrown on top of him. Oi, he shouted, pulling the blankets off his head while he heard people laugh, especially Izuku snicker. He finally pulled it off, and he was sure his hair was ruffled and messed up. He turned quickly to see Mina, hands on her hips. You need to be warm, Katsuki scoffed. I already warmed up in my room, you butt. Warmed up how? She smirked, making Katsuki roll his eyes with very small blush on his cheeks. "Shut up, raccoon eyes. Come here and sit." He patted the spot next to him. Mina smiled and hopped over the couch, plopping next to Katsuki. "Hey Bakugo. Wanna play?" 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮 asked, holding out the controller towards him. "No. Please see," Mina whined, dragging out the I said no. "Please, Katsuki." Now Izuku joined in, already having a controller in his hand. Mina has one now as well. He glanced back and forth between them, both of them pouting with begging eyes. "Fine," he grumbled, snatching the controller from 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙖𝙧𝙮. Mina and Izuku high-fived, happy with their victory. "Go you stupid beach," Katsuki screamed at the TV, his character in last. "Ha! USCK at this Bakugo." Mina laughed in second place. "He always at video games. Isn't that right, Katsuki?" Izuku snickered beside him, recounting all the times they played video games and Katsuki has lost. "I swear. Is this controller or character? Something." "Fine, then just change your character and controller," Todoroki shrugged. "Good idea," Mina beamed, controllers with Katsuki. "I absolutely hate this," Katsuki grumbled, losing again. Mina was laughing her butt off while Izuku patted his head for comfort, but he was still chuckling. "Well, you are just bad at video games," Izuku shrugged. "F this, I'm never playing video games ever again in my life." Katsuki crossed his arms, leaning into Izuku's head pats. "Oh, that means I can't brag about how amazing I am and how bad you are," Mina grinned. "If you say another word about this, I'm not joining you guys for games or dinner." Now that shut Mina up. "So, who's making dinner?" 𝙎𝙪𝙢𝙢𝙧𝙮 asked, looking around. Katsuki scoffed. "Well, me obviously. If it was any of you guys, the dorms would be on fire in a matter of minutes." "Hey, that not true." "Good." Izuku argued back. "Tisage, that's just because I taught you. I guess you are the only good cook, Bakugo. Please be fast, I'm starving." Mina yelled after Katsuki, who was already in the kitchen. "Shut it. Don't rush me, raccoon eyes." Food's done, everyone heard from the kitchen, racing to the smell of delicious food. And of course Izuku got there first, practically drooling at the sight of a homemade bowl katsudon that was handed to him by Katsuki. No one else got katsudon, they all got the same thing. "Why does he get the amazing katsudon?" Denki shouted playfully. "'Cause I'm special compared to all of you." "That hurts." "Game time," of course Mina yelled, jumping out of her seat at the diner table. "Sit down, idiot. We aren't done with our food yet." Katsuki shouted back. Mina looked around and realized everyone was still eating. "I guess I got a little too excited for games." She smiled. "Whatever. Are we playing board games?" Katsuki asked. Mina frantically nodded, excited. After everyone got done with dinner and cleaned up their plates, they all sat around the commons area. "Let's play a big game of Uno." "Huh. I win you f-airs." Katsuki grinned, throwing down his last card, a wild. "I forgot Katsuki was good at games." Izuku smiled, looking over at him. "So he at video games but is amazing at board games and other games like that?" Kirishima questioned, Izuku nodding. "He has very good luck with these kinds of games." "Luck?" Katsuki scoffed. "I don't need luck. I'm just good at it." Izuku could practically feel the eye roll. "Whatever you want to believe, babe. You don't call me that. What do you want me to call you then?" Immediately Katsuki's mind went to dirty names. He couldn't help it. I don't know." He crossed his arms and looked away. Abruptly, the dorm doors slammed open, making everyone jump and WHP around. They sighed in relief as it was just Aizawa, his usual tired face on. "Izuku, it's almost time to leave for the airport," he yawned. Izuku frowned, Katsuki slouching in his seat with a scowl. The mood did a full 180. Aizawa sighs, "Sorry for having to say it, but you have to be ready soon." Izuku nodded in understanding. "I will be." "Can Katsuki come with me to the airport?" "Yes, he can." "Thank you, Aizawa." Aizawa nodded and walked back out of the dorms. "I'm gonna miss you, Midoriya." Mina frowned. "Yes, we will miss you, Midoriya." Todoroki nodded, laying a friendly hand on his shoulder. Izuku smiled up at Todoroki. "I will miss you guys too." Izuku glanced at Katsuki, sensing the dreadful mood surrounding him. "Me and Katsuki are gonna go pack my things really quick." Izuku stood up, Katsuki following while holding his hand. Katsuki flopped onto his bed face first and groaned, not saying anything. Izuku sighed and sat down in the bed, rubbing Katsuki's back. "You know I'll be back for Christmas?" "Too long," Izuku smiled slightly, knowing that was going to be his response. "Are you gonna help me pack or what?" Katsuki got up and nodded. After they got done packing all of Izuku's things from Katsuki's room, all they did was stay in each other's embrace. Knowing it was about time, they leaned back and firmly kissed. "Okay, let's get going." As they came downstairs, Aizawa and Hizashi there waiting for them. "Ready?" Aizawa asked. Izuku nodded and smiled. It wasn't his usual one, but it was a smile nonetheless. Izuku went around and said goodbye to everyone except Uraraka, refusing to talk to her at all. Mina had tears in her eyes as she hugged Sakura to death, Sakura laughing and squeezing her back. Mina sent her off with a kiss. Everyone waved as Izuku and his class walked out, Katsuki trailing behind him. Mina's smile died down, her arm fall back down to her side as the class was out the door. "Katsuki is quieter than usual. I know he just won't be the